Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
So I'm just going to ask a theoretical question. Should a team be in the top 4 of the college football playoff rankings if they don't have a win over a current top 25 team? Think about that.
Well, I'll say this. They shouldn't be ranked ahead of a team with the same record that has a better win.
So there's not just one of those top 4 teams that doesn't have a win over a ranked team. There's 2 of the top 4 teams that don't have. That would be the University of Texas.
Texas University.
Yep. And also Penn State.
Penn State.
Penn State does not have a win over a ranked team right now.
Yeah, because Illinois has fallen on hard times. I think Illinois was 19 when they beat them. Now, they did lose only by a touchdown to Ohio State, which I believe is number 2 in the rankings.
Uh-huh.
So that kind of gives you a little bit of...
Well, you know what these folks do? I don't know them. I'm assuming them, but I'm putting a little what I think. I think a lot of times they go with brand names when they're like,
you think?
Yeah, Georgia? I mean, they lost to Georgia. Georgia could have been in the champions last year, Master. You know, like...
I don't think they have that accent, because if they did, they'd have maybe some of the SEC teams higher.
Right.
You know?
It's interesting,
it makes me
though,
wonder,
right?
It makes me wonder how many people really pay attention on that committee, because I look at it, and it's not meant to be a knock at Texas, but it's just looking at things the way they are. How is Texas ranked ahead of, say, who was I thinking about? Not Penn State, but there was somebody else. Was it Tennessee I was thinking about?
Tennessee, yeah.
You know, which has a win over Alabama.
Tennessee has a win over Alabama.
Which beat Georgia.
Right.
And your big win is over, as Texas, your big win's over Georgia. And, okay, I guess you can say, well, Alabama has 2 losses. And you can play that game and say, well, but Tennessee has 1 loss, right?
Tennessee. Now, I do fully expect them to have their second loss this weekend.
Yeah, especially
if Nico's hurt, right?
Yeah, supposedly he's out. Supposedly.
But the rankings as of today, they should be higher than some of those teams.
And I keep saying, somebody tell me who's the big win for Texas. And it's Vanderbilt.
And if we're going brand names with everything else, well, sorry. But yeah, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They went to a very hostile environment with 13 fans, and it's 9 of them were their fans.
And they eked out, they showed their fortitude and eked out a 3-point win.
By the way, because I know I have Texas people who listen, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't be in the college football playoff conversation, but we are merely bringing up a conversation about the data points, what we've seen.
Right.
Penn State, I think they're one of the best 12 teams in the country. I do. But they haven't beat anybody. Sorry, they haven't. Tennessee, I can project what I think is going to happen over the next couple of weeks. But as of today, and then it goes back to Texas A&M, who dropped a spot from 14 to 15. Yeah. I don't care.
It's irrelevant. If you win, you're going to be in. If you don't, you won't. That simple.
But does it feel like you have to win not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 in a row?
You absolutely have to win 4 in a row, because if you don't, you're going to have 3 losses, and 3 losses I don't think is going to get you in, unless you were a team like
Georgia,
maybe Alabama or Georgia.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Heather Dinich. You familiar with her work on ESPN?
Yeah, I am.
Here's what she had to say yesterday. I would really hesitate to eliminate a 3-loss SEC team. She goes on to say, as much as people keep throwing out the word elimination game every week, I would really hesitate to eliminate a 3-loss SEC team, and that includes Georgia if it loses to Tennessee. Here's why. Because in the first 10 years of the college football playoffs, there have been 13 3-loss teams ranked in the selection committee's top 10 on selection day.
Okay. All right. But if it's A&M with 3 losses, and do you think A&M gets in? Because
no, I don't.
History tells me that A&M can't get in with 1 loss in the top 4, as we know in 2020 when they played an all-SEC schedule. So
I think potentially, if that loss is in the SEC championship game, potentially.
All right, you have more faith in committees than I do.
I don't have faith. The word is potentially. I think it would be a terrible look for A&M's losses this year to be a South Carolina team that was ranked ahead of LSU, by the way, who lost to LSU.
And will probably be ranked before the season's over.
They're ranked right now, aren't they?
I don't know. I know
they're not ranked in the AP, but in this, okay? You've got that. You've got a loss to Notre Dame. Are they a top 10 team?
Yeah, well, I think definitely. Aren't they 6?
Yeah.
Or something.
Okay. So, and theoretically, if they had a 3rd loss, it would be probably to a.
Well, we're talking about in the championship.
In the SEC championship.
So it'd be to Ole Miss, Georgia, somebody that.
But somebody was tweeting me, for Ole Miss to make the SEC championship game, a lot has to happen. A lot. Like A&M has to lose. I think Georgia has to lose. Bama has to lose. I feel like there's quite a few scenarios. I have to go back and look. There's too many things out there.
Yeah.
So that's why I just say, let's keep it simple, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though I remember covering a Ohio State-Illinois game back in 2007 and in Columbus, Ohio, and Illinois upset them. And I remember writing about how that ended Ohio State's national championship possibility, lose at home in November.
Right.
And, of course, every single thing that had to happen, there was like 6 things that had to happen, and every one of them happened, and Ohio State got a national championship game.
Yeah. Things can happen. As for A&M, I just think you just start with New Mexico State. Mm-hmm. You figure it out. Well, there's no figuring it out. You win that one. You
figure it out to beat Auburn on the road.
And I was having a conversation with some friends yesterday at Isla's soccer practice, some dads. Like, what do you think about A&M getting into the championship? And I'm like, or the SEC championship. Like, they just got to win these games. But I'm more worried about Auburn than I am Texas right now.
Right now, because that's the next one. If you're on the road.
It's on the road.
And then have all that angst after you beat Auburn.
I'll reset my.
Have all that angst for Texas.
Yeah, I'll recalibrate. By the way, what if Texas loses this weekend to Arkansas?
Well, they will join that big log jam of teams with 2 losses.
I don't see it happening because I don't think Arkansas is the same Arkansas team that we saw earlier in the year.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because I think momentum is a real thing for a season, not just in a game.
Well, I know they got beat bad by Ole Miss.
They lost by 30-something points?
Yeah, it's like 63-30. But Ole Miss has really hit its stride.
Yeah, they have. And I believe both quarterbacks played for Arkansas in that game. Taylor Green was not 100% healthy, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So, did Arkansas play last week, or did they have an open week? I can't recall. Right
last week wasn't last week the no? There was the open week. That was 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so maybe they're healthy. We'll see. I say this: going up to Fayetteville is not going to be easy for Texas.
I wouldn't be surprised if they take on a walk-on quarterback, though.
I will pick. Yeah, it seems
that's how it goes.
I will pick Texas to win that game.
I will too.
But I would not be surprised if they have a hard time with the Hogs.
Yeah. I got a question for you, Obi.
Ask.
A year ago today, what happened?
I don't know. Was it about this time Jimbo got released?
Jimbo got fired a year ago today. It was a Sunday a year ago today. But this date, November the 13th of 2023, everything changed.
Yeah.
And remember.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
Remember, some people were shocked. Well, you just destroyed Mississippi State and you fired Jimbo Fisher? What a weird look.
Actually, they had not just destroyed Mississippi. He was fired before Mississippi State, was he not?
No, I think he was.
I thought they had just lost.
They lost to Ole Miss, and that's when I believe the decision was made.
So he got fired after beating Mississippi State. Well, that is odd.
Yeah.
I could have, I can't remember what I had for lunch some days. So
Fact check
going
me
back,
on that,
I have
Cooper.
to
I'm
fact check.
99% sure I'm right.
But-
I'm right. Thank you.
But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you fire a guy after a big win.
And part of the reason I remember this is we had a little intel that it was possible, right?
Uh-huh.
So I followed Jimbo off the field, and I got his last walk on purpose. As I'm not a very creative person, but I followed him off the field, his last steps as the head coach at Texas A&M.
Yeah, that is really interesting now that you think about it. It's all coming back to me and how, A&M, Aggies, man, we know I didn't go to A&M, but man, I love this, everything about it. But A&M just does some bizarre things, like firing a guy after a big win. Not that he didn't deserve to be released, but you would have thought they would have done it after the frustrating loss, right?
Nick, fact check me on this. I believe they were 6-4 after beating Mississippi State because they finished 7-5 last year, and I believe they had, was it UMass or whoever it was and then they
LSU.
had LSU.
Yeah.
They had those two games. So I believe that's how they ended up at 7-5. I'm pretty sure they were 6-4 coming off. But when you look at the 4 losses, how many of them were just right there for you?
Oh, all of them.
The tennis, they were 6-4. Yep.
Yeah, all of them. Again, we talk about Ole Miss. You throw an interception into the end zone on 1st and goal.
Yep.
When your quarterback could have just thrown it 10 rows deep in missed the field goal. You had the lead and couldn't get a stop at the end. That one. Tennessee,
Bama,
Alabama. Golly, it's just such a frustrating year.
I'm gonna play out a scenario this year, and I hope this is not the case. I'll be very disappointed if this is the case. But if A&M were to finish 8-4 this year, people are like, that's just the one game better. I don't know why this guy keeps bringing him up. He's got this voice. If they're 8-4 and last year they were 7-5, that's just one game better. I don't think you can look at records per se. I know at the end of the day it is about the record. Please don't get me wrong, but we all know it looks better, right? Like it looks better. The product.
Yeah, A&M needs to win at least 9 games this year.
Before the bowl
game, yes.
So you're saying they need to win 10?
Yeah. A 10-win season is that is the definition of a good college football season is 10 wins, whether you get the 10th one in the bowl game or not. But there's not a lot of 10-win teams. But yeah, you need to have a 10-win season, but you definitely need to go at no worse than 9-3. You don't look. A&M has there was a respite for a while under Jimbo, but November has not been kind to A&M for
years,
more than a decade.
Yeah.
So you need to exercise that demon.
Hey, I don't know if the people know what show they're listening to. It's not the Home Shopping Network.
They don't know it's TexAgs Live?
I mean, we didn't say it, so how would they know?
Well, I just think you just know.
You just know.
We haven't even said our names.
No, he's Olin Buchanan.
He's David Nuño.
And this is the Go Hour presented by
CC Creations.
That's correct. It is the Rollo Insurance Studio.
The whole thing is the Rollo
Insurance Studio. The actual entire presentation is brought to you by David.
Yeah, David Garner, gem of a guy.
Yeah, gem of a guy. Currently, we're in the Holistic Planning Cool Zone. And
I'm feeling pretty cool today.
Are you?
Yeah.
The air conditioning's
the air conditioning's working well.
In fact, I'm a little cold. And it's Holistic Planning allows you, they do the investments for you, they do the tax, the estate, but they also help you invest in pro sports.
Yeah, like if you have a pro sports team that's maybe your favorite, you can look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Cowboys are for sale, but potentially. Investinprosports.com, they'll help you find a way.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to invest in the Cowboys right now.
No, right now wouldn't be a good one. Let's go around the room and say hi to the people. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can do it multiple ways. You can call us up on the Boss Firearms Hotline, 979-693-1150, or you can text us on the Little Sluggers text line, 979-693-1150. We go behind the glass and we say hi to Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up with you?
Well, I know, again, the playoff rankings right now don't necessarily mean anything, and I know that they put them out, especially like, the first or second one, they're going to do something weird, right, to get people talking about it. But it's going to work on me because I'm about to talk about it because it annoyed me. How are you going to tell me Penn State, Indiana, or Notre Dame, like those teams are not better than Georgia So, I mean, the thing they did this time around to get people talking about it is keep Georgia out. And I understand they lost. But, again, if we're talking about the best teams in the at-large bid section, Georgia deserves a bid over any of those people.
Nick,
or any
remind me
of
the
those
teams that you say should be ahead
Penn
of Georgia.
State.
Penn State.
No, they should be. Georgia should be in over them. I'd say Indiana, Georgia's better than them. Penn State, Georgia's better than them. Can't say Ole Miss because they got beat by Ole Miss. And I'd even say Notre Dame. Georgia's better than Notre Dame.
Do you believe that Georgia is better than Notre Dame? Do you believe Georgia is better than Penn State?
Yes.
Do you believe Georgia is better than Indiana?
Yes.
Do you think Georgia should be in over those three teams?
No, not right now.
I don't either. Because I think, regardless of what conference you're in, I think your record should matter. Should. Now, I think it was a few years ago where I don't think you were, maybe I'm wrong here, you weren't sold on Cincinnati being one of the 4 college football best teams in college football, right? I do think it has to matter, but you can weigh. But if you have if you have 2 or 3 losses, then those teams should absolutely get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and in Indiana's case, they have no losses.
Yep.
Right?
I think one's coming this weekend.
I agree. What is it this weekend they're playing Ohio State?
Is that this weekend or next weekend? Whenever it is, it's coming up soon. Next weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the losses, a loss is coming, but then they're going to be probably 11-1. They've played absolutely nobody, but they're 11-1. So I think you'll get in with 11-1, but hopefully the committee will look at strength of schedule and actually put that into practice. Because I look, I mean, the Big 12's not good, right? And I keep hearing all this momentum for Colorado because they've won 6 of their last 7. One team with more than 5 wins, and
that's the same for Indiana. Yeah, it's the same.
Right. But at least Indiana has no losses.
Right.
Indiana beat Nebraska. Nebraska destroyed Colorado.
This is true.
So, they beat Baylor because Baylor went to sleep on a Hail Mary. So, I think you have to when you start filling out the top 12 because 4 teams are going to get in, 5 teams are going to get in as champions, 4 are going to get buys. But you have to then, I think, you would hope, start looking at strength of schedule because if you take a team that's 11-1 over a 10-2 team that played a much harder schedule, then what you're doing is telling everybody don't schedule marquee non-conference games.
I do believe carnage in a conference should matter a little bit. Not a lot of, it should matter because do we believe if you put Tennessee in the Big 12, they would be the top of the Big 12?
Yes.
If we put Texas A&M in the Big 12, would they be at top of the Big 12?
I think so.
Okay. If we put, let me think of a team that's not.
LSU?
LSU. I think they were at the top of the Big 12.
I would take them.
Okay. Arkansas, would they be, I don't know if they'd be at the top of the Big 12, but they'd be in the top tier of the Big 12.
That one I kind of agree with, but I couldn't argue it.
Right.
You know why? Because somebody from a Big 12 proponent will come back and say, wait, Arkansas lost to the worst team in the Big 12.
Well, this is true. This is true. All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Why am I talking like that, Cooper Patterson? Super Coop, what up?
How we doing? I'm doing really good today. A little tired this morning, but we got out of bed. We're here, drank some coffee, so we're gonna be good.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, I don't know why when you're that young
you need coffee.
And why you're tired, unless he's not the
partying.
He's not the big party type. He's not out there haunting Northgate with Nagley,
buddy. I don't. His dad Roger might be listening. I heard a rumor that he was going streaking in Northgate, which is completely against his family values, but that wasn't you, was it, Cooper?
No, it was not me.
All right. What do you have for us?
What does it look like? Well, standout Texas A&M defensive end Nick Scorton has been named as a semifinalist for the Lombardi Award, the Law Impact Trophy, and most recently the Benardic Award, which is the best defensive player in college football. The junior edge rusher ranked 10th in the country in tackles for loss with 12.5 on the year. He also has 4 sacks on the season, which ranks 9th in the SEC. And I have a question for y'all about Nick Scorton and these awards. What is he going to have to do for the rest of the season to win these awards? Not just be in the conversation, but to win them.
I'm gonna tell you, he's got a long way to go to win this award, OB, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. He needs to get to double-digit sacks, and it needs to be like 3-3, right? Or 4-2 or whatever. Like, he needs to put Quinn Ewers on his rear, and he needs to do that to Peyton Thorne a lot.
Right. He's going to have to be very productive, and especially in the Texas game, to have a chance to win it. Look up Jacob Green against Texas, and he has to be that guy. He has to be against Texas what Jacob Green was against Texas.
If A&M is in the SEC championship game, I believe all the things I just described to you will happen because he and the Shamars, they all are going to have to step up and be a terror this last part of the season. They have to.
They have to.
They're going to have to cost so much because I am not sure the offense is completely, obviously it's not completely figured out. We haven't seen this new version of it without Le'Veon Moss as your guy. So the defense is going to have to be elite. And we have not seen elite for long stretches yet.
No, we haven't. Even against Missouri, which they were so good, but part of it was Missouri missed some, open receivers, right?
Well, sure, but they were getting to the backfield against Missouri. They were. If they just tackled against Lenore Sellers, I think we're having a different conversation. They just didn't. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with games that OB wants to watch, which are probably games I want to watch. All right, PrizePicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play in $5 lineups. Issue against the stats, more than or less than. They also got a couple of different things going on right now. So you can pick the champion to score a free lineup with $5,000. The Prize Picks World Championships are less than a week away. 12 celebrity captains and their teammates go head-to-head in the ultimate fantasy competition on Sunday. Now's your chance to get in on the action for a free lineup to win up to $5,000. Pick your team that you think will take the crown on November the 17th. Free lineup to win $5,000. It's free to enter, Just lock your pick in by 12:45 Eastern on Sunday, November the 17th. Again, you against the stats, you against the numbers. More than or less than. PrizePicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs to get started. Get $50 once you play in $5 lineups. It's PrizePicks.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Lucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Lucci sent you by.
TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations, David Nuño, Olin Buchanan, and you. Let's get to some games you want to watch this weekend, OB.
Yeah, kind of a lean weekend again.
Yeah.
It's surprising. I guess there's a lot of good games coming up soon, but this week, I'm kind of intrigued to watch number 20 Kansas State and Arizona State. They're both 7-2 and 4-2 in the Big 12, so they're trying to stay in that Big 12 race. They're probably not. Neither one is probably going to make it. I mean, Kansas State maybe, but they had that recent loss. But if you win, you at least stay in the conversation for another week. So I think that one's kind of interesting. How about number 17 Clemson at Pitt?
That's an interesting game right there.
Yeah, Pitt was rolling until they got destroyed by SMU last week. Clemson is back in the ACC race because Miami lost. Right. So they got to take advantage, but they got to go on the road to Pitt, which is a pretty good team. But again,
you think two ACC teams are going to make the playoffs?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't. Oh,
right now, how do they have it, Nick? Show me the rankings again, if you don't mind, because
I think Miami's going to lose again.
Oh, I agree.
And if Miami loses, 2 losses, not going to get Miami in. Clemson already has.
So Miami right now, number 9. And SMU.
SMU's
right out there.
4 in the rankings, but I guess in the top 12 are on the bubble at least in the conversation too.
Right.
So, and the way it stands right now, if those 2 teams got in, then it's Miami against SMU for the championship, and somebody's going to get a second loss. So I don't think so. I think it's going to be one from the ACC.
Well, Tennessee or Georgia this weekend will be semi-eliminated, not completely eliminated. Well, no, excuse me, Tennessee won't be eliminated because they only have one loss. You're right. Georgia could be potentially semi-eliminated.
Yes, except in the mind of Heather Dinich.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's a reason to watch that game. Number 24 Missouri against South Carolina. Hey,
I'm interested in this one.
Missouri has 2 losses still, so they still have faint SEC championship game hopes. I mean, a lot of things would have to happen for them. South Carolina doesn't have a chance to get into the SEC championship, but they're playing as well as anybody right now.
They are playing.
And if I
arrow pointing up,
definitely, and blinking.
And I was trying to. I think the gentleman who was on TV last night from the College Football Playoff Committee mentioning that when the reason South Carolina is ranked higher than LSU, even though LSU beat South Carolina, is the arrows. How are they pointing? LSU feels like it's pointing down, 2 straight losses, and it feels like for South Carolina pointing way up, a couple ranked wins in a row.
Yeah. I think if 2 teams have the same record, 99% of the time, if they played each other, then I would lean to the team that won. But if they have the same record and you played early and you see one is definitely trending one way, the other, then I can get on board with that. Number 3, Texas at Arkansas. The Longhorns defense is rated number 2 in the nation.
We're about to find out.
But Arkansas has by far the best offense Texas faced. I think the Razorbacks are ranked number 5 in total offense.
Are they that high?
I think so. Somebody checked that on collegefootballstats.com. I think they're like
how many points did A&M give up to them? 14?
14.
Huh.
They scored a bunch against Pine Bluff, so that doesn't really count. They scored a bunch against Oklahoma State. They still had 31 against Ole Miss. So they've actually put it. They moved the ball up and down the field against Tennessee. Only scored 19 points, but moved it. So I think
they did score 58 against Mississippi State.
Yeah.
They only scored 10 against LSU, but I believe that's the game Taylor Green got hurt.
Yeah,
he's been hurt a few times.
So anyway, I think that's going to be and on the road.
Actually, he didn't get hurt. I apologize. He played that whole game. He came in hurt where he couldn't run the ball very well, but he passed for 239.
And then the number 1 game in the country, everybody knows this, is number 6 Tennessee at number 11 Georgia. Georgia's playoffs hopes are maybe hanging by a thread, and Tennessee's at home with I'm sorry, the Bulldogs are at home though, and they do have a 7-game winning streak against the Volunteers, but. And the Volunteers may be without Nico. I'm leaving on a jet plane.
I believe Georgia will still be in the conversation. I think Kirby's that good of a coach.
Well, I think they're going to win.
They're going to win. Even if Nico plays, I think they're going to win.
Yeah, I think they're going to win. And, that log jam of 10-2 teams is just going to get bigger.
Yep. All right, let's hit a break. We come back. Tom Schuberth will join us on the phone. We'll talk a little bit about Aggie basketball. Right now, 1775. If I say prime meats, you say what?
1775.
If I say handmade sides, you say what?
1775.
If I say featured in Texas Monthly, top 25 new barbecue joints and top 100 barbecue joints, you say?
1775.
If I say they're not open on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you say?
Well, unfortunately, that would be 1775.
But if I say they're open Thursday through Saturday.
I'm saying 1775, Thursday through Saturday.
If I say rib tips, if I say, what else? Beef ribs, if I say
Pork
queso mac and cheese.
Queso mac and cheese.
If I say burn ends.
Burn ends.
If I say that, what do you say?
Brisket, 1775. You can get it all.
If I say 1775txbbq.com, what do you say?
Let's go.
If I say 979-492-6241, you say?
Let's go, or let's call them and order some.
It's 1775txbbq.com. Check it out. It is TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Our buddy Gabe, he sent me a note. Jingle Bell Market for the 10th time this Sunday is from 12 to 4 o'clock at Pebble Creek Country Club. It was started by Megan and Bach Realty and, of course, Gabe. And featuring 35 local vendors and let's see, selling all types of items that will allow shoppers to knock out large portions. I know my wife loves going.
I'm hoping Irma's not listening.
She's listening
because she has.
Gabe texts her right now.
She has spent so much money over the years in that at that Jingle Bell Market.
But it's for the Aggie Land Pregnancy Outreach, so that's for a great cause.
At least it's a good cause.
Yep. Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. Tom Schuberth, our basketball analyst and the coach, joins us here on the program. Tom, you're on the road. That's right.
I am, yes, David. I'm in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's right off Interstate 55, so it's about a people pass through it. I'm doing a game. Southeast Missouri State is playing Crowley's Ridge out of Arkansas tonight, so I'm up here going to do color for that ESPN Plus.
Cool. Tom, I want to start things off from an A&M basketball perspective. I know the last two opponents aren't of the same ilk that we'll see on Friday against Ohio State. But what have you seen in those games to give you a little bit of that optimism of what we had coming into the season as opposed to what we saw there when they took on Central Florida?
Well, I love the depth. 8 seniors, as we talked about. And, Zurich Phelps, when you watch him live in person, he's got a special gear. It doesn't take a basketball expert to watch him and see he's really skilled and talented. I think he's going to be the key to us having an elite year. He is a little turnover prone right now, but I think that's understandable, trying to do too much, being hurt and then coming in with high expectations, being a fifth-year senior. But I love the team. I really do. I mean, they were dominant the other night at times, and, of course, then they got a little sloppy. I was surprised they didn't win by 30 or 40 points. But I just think there's a lot of depth, and guys are going to be held accountable because if they don't get the job done, the next man up is going to take over. I love our defense, athleticism, length, size. I mean, we have the total package. I think the key, again, is going to be do we make timely shots. I don't think we have to shoot a great percentage, but the Ags have to make key shots and to keep themselves in the game. This will be a wonderful test for them on Friday night, I believe.
Yeah, how do you think the Aggies are going to match up against Ohio State, especially close to the basket?
Well, they have a 7-1 center that's back from last year that's playing a lot more minutes, and he's Aaron Bradshaw, who's just a sophomore. He was a highly recruited freshman last year. He'll be a factor, I think, in defensively blocking shots, but I don't know if they can stop us. They play like almost 4 guards and a big. If we're able to get the ball inside with our, balance, I think we can score easily there. But Ohio State's a much better team than they were last year. They're playing with more confidence. If you remember, we opened the season last year on the road and won. This year, they're playing a little looser. They're playing faster. Ironically, the coach that was the head coach last year got fired. They promoted an assistant in mid-year, and he did a good job, so they kept him. And he's in his brother was an ex-star there, a guy named John Dibbler at Ohio State. He's actually on the staff. So I think they're playing with more confidence. They beat Texas early in the year in Las Vegas, and then they've had a big win against Youngstown State by almost 40 points. So I think it's going to be a dogfight. I wish I could be there. I'm going to be on the road doing another game, but I'm certainly going to watch it on TV.
Talking to Tom Schuberth on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Tom, let's talk a little bit about Anderson Garcia. I don't expect him to score double digits very often, but I feel like sometimes when he gets going, his offense does pop up, and if you're going to do 15-9, I don't think the Aggies are going to lose many games that he provides that.
I agree, David. One thing I love about him, he never hunts his shots. He lets the game come to him. If you think about it, he makes layups. Now, he did make his 2 threes, which is wonderful, and he shot them quick. But I think in a game like that, you're playing a little loose. You're playing a team you're supposed to win, but does the guy ever do anything wrong? I mean, other than foul every now and then, but he's just such a complete player. I mean, he's a coach's dream. We were talking about him just the other day. Some of the things he does doesn't show up in the stat sheet, yet he still has great stats. He's the leading rebounder. He shoots a high field goal percentage, and he's just a terror to the other team. So he's one of my favorite players just because of the way he plays and his demeanor, and he's just out there trying to win. So coaches love players like that. Some of the other forwards and centers might have bigger and better stats when the game ends, but I think Garcia impacts the game probably as big as anybody on our squad.
Yeah, we're a couple minutes into this interview. We haven't even asked about Wade Taylor yet. Haven't even brought him up. So what does that say about this team? Tom, Wade hasn't shot as frequently as maybe he did last year. I'm assuming that's by design. Do you think that continues? Is that just the way they're playing now, or do you think this is the kind of game where Wade has a bigger offensive role?
Obi, I think this will be a game where he has a bigger offensive role. That's another thing why I think the Ags are really good. I mean, Wade Taylor, so unselfish. He could hunt more shots. He could certainly, pull the trigger a lot quicker, but he's distributing the ball and getting other guys involved. But I really believe at crunch time, he's going to look to shoot the ball, and Coach Williams will run some plays to get him quality shots. But, he's fun to watch, too, because he just has that demeanor where nothing rattles him, and he gets the other guys involved. I liked the way he played the other night. He wasn't super aggressive because he didn't have to be. I think when we're playing this team like Ohio State or when we have Oregon or some of the high-powered teams in the SEC, I think you'll see Wade be much more aggressive. And quite honestly, that's a quality, again, that a lot of superstars don't have. Some of them, every night they play, they want to be the leading scorer, the leading shot taker, and Wade doesn't mind deferring and getting his teammates involved. And I think the only thing on his mind is he wants to win and get back in the NCAA tournament.
Talking to Tom Schuberth here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Tom, I want you to take me inside of a coach's mindset when you're tinkering with lineups in the early part of the season and maybe your rotations, that sometimes if this was an SEC game, I think this Ohio State game is going to matter, obviously. They're going to want to win this game. But it may not be that tight rotation that we see later on. Take me through the thought process behind that.
Sure. I almost hate to say this, but sometimes things happen by accident. When you have the luxury of having, let's say, we literally have 12 guys that could be starters or, close to a dozen guys. And so you start tinkering with the rotation like you were saying, David, and then things just fall into place. Guys step up and you find the right combination. I mean, the unit we started Tuesday night, the Ags, look at the talent level. I know Hefner started, I think, the first two ball games, and then he didn't start Tuesday night or Monday night, excuse me. So that's a great luxury to have. I don't think by design that coaches, know exactly how that lineup's going to come. That's just my opinion. Maybe Coach Williams in his mind knows, and his staff, because they're around him all the time and they're tinkering with it in practice. But I think you'll see the lineup evolve based on who's playing well at the right time, and it'll be surprising. That's another reason why I think we're going to win some games that maybe we lost last year. I use the word hero. I think we'll have 8 to 9, 10 guys that will be the difference maker in a win this year. It might be a Hayden Hefner coming off the bench making 4 or 5 threes in a key game. It might be, Phelps scoring down low where he can't be stopped. It's just going to be Payne. It's just going to be a fun team to watch. And, I think Coach Williams can answer that question better on the rotations, but I'm looking forward to seeing who is going to evolve into the true starting lineup before the SEC season starts.
Tom, great work, buddy. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
That is Tom Schuberth there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back and just kind of wrap things up here in the Go Hour. Let's talk a little duck camp. I don't know if I'm not a big I'm not a big social media guy, OB. I'm not big, okay? Like, I don't have to tweet opinions or my lunch or my breakfast. I know you love doing, you know, whatever you work on at the house. You love posting the picture of the souffle you cook and stuff. I don't like doing that, but I did post some pictures. I don't know. That's the first thing that came to my mind. But I did post my hunting pictures. Did you see those?
I did.
All right. And did you see how I was dressed?
Yeah, I got the
Duck camp, baby.
It was.
Are you still laughing about souffle? Well, duck camp, like, the gear is fantastic. It's how would you describe it, OP? As you're laughing a little bit, it's not too tight.
No.
Even though I like tight, this is not too tight. This is perfect tight. It's not too loose.
No.
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable. It's just right.
And it's like long sleeve sometimes in the heat. Like, you're like, why would you wear long sleeves? Because it's sun protection, bros.
Yeah, it's a plus. I don't know how they do it, but it's very airy. So you're
not hairy, but airy.
Airy.
Yeah.
So even though it's long sleeves, you still stay cool.
You stay cool. You can wear it in the cool zone.
You could.
You can wear it at Kyle Field.
I'll tell you how cool it is. Like I've told you, my son went and confiscated all the stuff I had.
Yep. Duck camp is gear made for the people that live for the moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, a time to kill, and of course, football to watch. Check out the gear at duckcamp.com. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner Schulers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. He's Olin Buchanan. I'm David Nuño. We've got OB for a few more minutes. OB, I'm a very novice. I'm actually not good yet at all, and I hope I get good one day at this MMA thing, right? Like I'm trying to learn jiu-jitsu. It's very hard. But my friends there at Brazos Valley MMA are celebrating 25 years this weekend.
25 years?
Yeah, wow. And they're going to have a big event. Carlos Machado, who's a legend in the sport, right? You've heard his name, yeah. He's going to be in town for it, so that's going to be...
you going to fight him?
No, but he will roll with you. He'll teach you stuff. Yeah, that's how they do it. Saturday, November 16th, Post Oak Mall. Check it out. Meet and greet with Carlos Machado. They're going to have a bunch of other stuff going on, so you'll want to see it. Doors open at 10:30 a.m. Maybe I'll show Mr. Machado what I can do. Maybe. I am a hunter and a fighter now, so you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm saying.
I think that you should. I think you should challenge him.
Yeah.
Challenge him in Spanish.
Yeah?
Yeah, come out there. Hey.
He's Brazilian. Okay.
Oh, that's Portuguese.
Yeah. But what was the accent you were going to give me?
I don't know.
I want to hear it.
I was going to say a word, then I thought, wait a minute,
Maybe I can't do that. Maybe I should reel it back.
It's one of those words where Irma calls me sometimes. So I can't.
Cariño, bebé, right?
I'll tell you off the air.
Okay. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Coop, what do you have for us?
Well, we were just talking about Alex Caruso off air. But yeah, I want to talk about the fan favorite Aggie basketball player and his first season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Through his first 11 games, in around 20 minutes a game, he's averaging 4.2 points, 2.9 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 1.7 steals. He's been struggling to shoot the ball so far this year, shooting career low 21.9% from three. But I really anticipate that number to return closer to his career average of 37.5 as the season goes on. Despite the poor shooting, the Thunder have started the season 9-2 and will continue to be a contender in the Western Conference. I want to ask y'all,
I'll answer y'all.
Anybody on the current A&M team that could go be potentially an Alex Caruso type guy in the NBA, or I guess broader question, who on our team now, we were actually just talking about this off air, could go be in the NBA someday and like make a good impact?
I can see Anderson Garcia.
I can see it because he does the dirty work.
Right? I don't think he's got the size per se, but like he's an effort guy. Let me tell you, and I think sometimes it's almost unfair to think something about a player until they're completely like Quentin Jackson. I don't know if we saw the explosion that eventually became him. Did you see it happening?
I thought that Quentin Jackson would have a chance.
Yeah.
Right? I think Wade Taylor will have a chance. I think Phelps, what I've seen,
Phelps looks like he's going to have a chance.
What I've seen is going to have a chance. But, it's, so hard to get into that league because we've seen great players, not just here, but other places, they maybe get in but can't stay.
You're right. Yeah, I could. Dexter Dennis was a guy that I looked at him a couple of years ago. Like he looks like an NBA player. And I'm trying to think who on this team you just look at him and you're like, that's an NBA body. I don't know. I mean, Henry Coleman. I feel like if he got a little faster, which is he's in the NBA. I don't know what position he would play because I don't know if he's big enough to be a power forward. Or quick enough to be a small forward, but I love his game.
Yeah, he's a big, strong guy.
You know what?
Bigger than Anderson.
Yeah, he's bigger than that.
But Anderson just makes plays, and like we said, he does that dirty work. And I don't know. I mean,
hey, if they want to play professionally somewhere, look at Boots.
Look at Boots. He's 6'2", and he's playing professionally in Turkey.
I think it's Turkey, yeah, and he's doing well from what I understand. So
well, all right.
Luke Evangelist, they're boys. He interviewed him last week, I believe.
Yeah.
All right, OB. Thank you, buddy.
All right, thank you.
When we come back on TexAgs Live, John Harris will join us. We'll talk to Johnny. We'll talk to Max Wright. We'll talk to Ryan Brauninger. We will talk to Peter Burns. We will talk to you. We'll get your text messages at 979-693-1150. And if you call us on the Boss Firearms hotline, we will pick it up. Boss Firearms, your local experts. They buy used guns, ammo, accessories. Go to bossfirearms.com and start earning money like a boss today. Everyone, David Nuño here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season. We're back here on TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody listening in. Let's do this before we talk to John Harris. As a reminder, the final segment of the show is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave, serving Aggieland since 1984. They have your favorite pizza. They have your favorite world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We're talking to my guy, John Harris. Johnny, good morning, buddy.
Morning, David. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, so we need to talk a lot of football because I don't want to lose our audience, okay? Because I'm going to ask I'm going to ask you a question that just came up in the studio. And if we could spend maybe a minute 12 max on it. Cooper is a huge James Harden fan. He's working at our social center. And he asked me, why don't you like James Harden? And I gave him my reasons why I didn't like him. So do you like James Harden? And I think the answer is no. And the reason is?
He's lazy and fat.
There we go.
Simple as that. I mean,
not a great teammate?
Not a great teammate at all. I mean, he just, he was a one-trick pony. He could score, but I take it back. he could distribute, but he was the star player at a time when the Rockets were good, but it wasn't a brand of basketball that I liked watching. Not at all. I mean, I did not like watching him at all because the ball got in his hands and it was just like, well, no, James is going to play the way James is going to play. And he even said that. I don't know. He wasn't with the Rockets at that point, but he was like, nah, I'm going to play the way I want to play. Like, what? I thought it was to play to win with team. No. So,
all right.
No, fat, lazy, and I would have never liked playing with that guy.
Well, and this I can speak to in every sport, right? We can talk about it in college football. We can talk about it in pro football, the NBA. I don't like players that think they're the general manager and keep asking for things and still being unhappy and poisoning the team around them. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I think in every walk of or every level of sports, I think it's absolutely that way. You see it in the high school level where you've got recruits that know are going to go to a Power 5 school, and you see them wearing that school's colors, and they have a towel or gloves that say University of Miami or whatever, and it's like, no, you play for Bridgeland or you play for Side Creek. Like, that's your team right now. You shouldn't be glorifying the fact that you're going on to play at Oklahoma. You play for that team. And you know me though. How I tick. I'm all about team, and I'm all about loyalty to the team, and that's what I'm all about. So I'm probably the worst person to ask because I think our sports have changed in a sense. Like, I think more younger people are more fans of players than they are of teams. And hey, do you like the Rockets? No, but do you love James Harden? Yeah. And there were some people that were like that, where I'm like, no, to me, it's more about team. Yeah, I have players I like, but I'm not going to like a guy over my favorite team, if that makes any sense. So I don't know. James Harden kind of is at the tip of the iceberg for a lot of people. I feel like there are people in Houston, and I feel like this is a lot of places, but in particular, people in Houston, I think, defended James Harden because, yeah, he was playing for Houston at the time, but I know down deep it hurt them in some sense to be really rooting for a guy that they didn't care for, who didn't really care for Houston. I think that bothers fans more than anything else.
All right, let's get to football. The college football playoff rankings came out yesterday. 3 Big Ten teams in the top 4. Look, there's a lot of football that has to shake out. What are your initial thoughts seeing the rankings?
Penn State's a fugazi. I can't stand Penn State. Penn State would lose to 5 teams in the SEC. But get lost with this. Penn State's going to get a home playoff game against Ole Miss. I think that was the one that popped up last night. And Ole Miss will run through them like, diarrhea after a trip to Mexico. They will run right through them. And I can't for the life of me see. Now, Oregon's a good football team. Ohio State's a good football team. Penn State is, Indiana's better than Penn State. And I even think Indiana might have some limitations once they start playing some legit teams. But Oregon, Ohio State, yeah, okay. But to have Penn State in that mix, you can miss me with that. The only team that Penn State has played this year that's been worth a damn, they lost at home by a touchdown. So you can miss me with the Penn State stuff. Sorry, Penn State listeners, you just can't. I just don't think they're at that level. The rest of the teams are. But I think Big Ten, SEC, I mean, I think it's been clear in the Big Ten, it's Oregon, Ohio State. It'll be interesting to see how Indiana is going to fare with Ohio State in a couple weeks. But Indiana's got a week off to kind of get everything together before they go up there. And I think Indiana has a really good football team. I think they're better than Penn State. And I think Indiana is properly ranked. I think Penn State, I wouldn't even put Penn State in the top 11. I don't care what the record is. They haven't done anything to impress me this year. Ooh, they came from behind out in L.A. Ooh, great. They beat a team that's 500 or whatever USC is. So you get lost with Penn State. What I think is also interesting is like seeing SMU, who right now might be the second best team in the state of Texas. SMU is a damn good football team. To see SMU behind Miami and not even in the playoff is mystifying. Now, it all is going to play itself out. SMU is going to get a shot at Miami, I would think, as long as things continue, and they'll play an ACC championship game. But ACC is going to get one team in there, because if SMU loses, you're not putting an ACC team with 2 losses, so SMU would be out. Miami would go. Miami loses that. I don't know that 2 wins are going to get Miami in there, because they've skated by so many other close games. Miami could be easily, what are they now? They're 9-1. They could easily be 7-3 with a couple of games that would have gone the other way. So I think the ACC gets 1. I think SMU is that best team. So that was the other one. The other one that stood out was SMU not being included in the playoff. Miami being in a bye position, but that's right now, because those teams will play each other in a conference championship. Here's the other one. I think we're going to see this very soon, David, and I'm not exactly sure the right way to think about this, but there's going to be a good team that gets knocked out. Like, for instance, let's take Big 12, BYU, because I could see this being the case. BYU could finish the rest of the season undefeated. They won the Holy War the other day. They finished undefeated. And all of a sudden, they got to play Colorado. And Colorado is a good football team right now. And Colorado beats them, knocks BYU from the ranks to the unbeaten. Colorado gets the Big 12 slot. BYU, because it just hasn't gotten love from the voters at the beginning of the year, falls all the way out of the top 12. And the conference championship cost the Big 12, BYU, and potentially Colorado, because Colorado gets hot at the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if conferences start rethinking this whole conference championship thing, especially in conferences that aren't the SEC and Big Ten. So I know it's a big moneymaker for the conferences, but it's going to be interesting that if the team gets knocked out, they'll get one team back in. But I think a conference like the Big 12, BYU could be undefeated, but a one-loss BYU team might not be attractive to the committee and might fall out of the Big 12. So you might have a situation where you could have 2 Big 12s potentially that goes down to 1 because of the conference championship. I think conferences might be looking at that conference championship game going, I don't know if we want to subject our teams to one more game of this. We could lose one of our teams in the playoffs. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how that unfolds over the next couple of years. That's not going to be an issue this year. As far as, the conference championship games are in, but I wonder if conferences are going to rethink that whole thing and want to move away from it at some point. But we'll see. Because there could also be a lot of rematches. I mean, is there a potential? I guess maybe not. I'm trying to think. Is there a potential having A&M and Texas meet again in the SEC championship? I don't know how that could happen. There's probably a way it could happen, but you may want to avoid those kind of things. So we'll see how that goes. But I think conference championship game might be the next thing that kind of moves aside, and potentially maybe we will move to 16 or even 20 teams. Teams won't want to play that conference championship game because it just adds up to another game, and you're playing all of a sudden a 17-game season like you're playing in the NFL.
Johnny, what about Texas, a team that I think should be in the top 10 of the 12 rankings, wherever that number is? But if you use the same microscope with Penn State, you can say the same thing about Texas. Who have they beaten to be the third best? They haven't beaten a team that is in the top 25 right now. Their best win is what? Vandy, probably, and that's a good win. But that's it's not Michigan. It's probably Vandy.
Yeah, I think for me, David, and you know how I look at things. I spent a ton of time looking at the draft, and I think that Texas just has overall more draftable talent. It's close. Penn State's got some individual talent, but I think you're right. I think they're very, very similar. Very similar. Drew Allar and Quinn Ewers are different looking quarterbacks, but they're the same guy. You have no idea from week to week what you're getting from Allar. Like with Ewers, you have no idea what you're going to get from Ewers, to be honest. I wanted to see more consistency this year. Not getting it. Same with Allar. Penn State's got Abdul Carter, dudes off the edge. Texas has dudes off the edge. I mean, in fact, probably their best guy is a guy that we can't draft for the next couple of years in Colin Simmons. But I just think Texas has overall better NFL draftable talent. That's how I look at it. I look at Penn State and see some draftable players, no doubt. But I just think overall, I don't see it. But to your point, I think that's a very apt comparison. Very apt. And I do think on a neutral field in a bowl game, I think Texas would end up beating them by 7 to 10 points. That's my gut reaction to it. And I think A&M and Texas, I hate that Le'Veon Moss is out, but I think A&M and Texas are that close. So I think A&M would beat Penn State by 7 to 10 points. I just don't believe in Penn State. But yes, I think that Texas gets a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because the only loss was to Georgia, and they beat Michigan at Michigan. They've kind of held their own in other places. They didn't play well at Vandy, but they got that win. But I think Texas just has better overall talent. I like Sark more than I like James Franklin. I think James Franklin has had every opportunity to turn that in to a top 2, top 3 program every year. He hasn't done it. He's lost every big game he's had. I don't know. I feel like Texas is just overall better talent as I see it. But from a resume standpoint, Penn State's resume is no better than Texas and vice versa.
Talking to John Harris on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Johnny, so A&M at 15 right now. Do you think if they win the next 3 and were to lose in the SEC championship game, going back to the conversation we were having a moment ago, you think they would be outside looking in?
I don't want to punt on that question, David, in a sense, because I do think it's intriguing to think about. I do think that a 3-loss SEC team could have an opportunity to get that, maybe the 12th spot, maybe 11th spot. I don't know. It depends on kind of what happens with Boise State. I think there's so many fluid things that have to happen. I feel like, and I haven't looked at Penn State's schedule, but I feel like Penn State's going to get knocked off again. I feel like, Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State should run the table. So I feel like there are pretty solid teams up at the top, but I think there are some teams, that could help A&M if they got a 3rd loss. Like if Alabama somehow tripped up from here on out, I think that would help A&M. But if you play it out, that would mean A&M would beat Auburn and Texas and knocked off Mizzou and LSU. I saw something yesterday where somebody was making a case for a 3-loss LSU team to get in there. I'm like, LSU should have 5 losses. They should have never beaten Ole Miss. They had no business beating South Carolina, but they won those games, so give them a little bit of credit. But I think the resume for A&M is a lot better than it is for LSU. Every comparable thing you look at, and oh, by the way, A&M kicked LSU's you-know-what. So I would think that A&M would have a leg up because they would have a win over Auburn, they would have a win over Texas, and then as long as they just didn't get blown completely out by whomever they faced in the SEC championship game, which I wouldn't imagine would happen, they'd be sitting there at 10-3. I think that could be, I don't want to say in great shape, but I do think they would absolutely be in contention for that 11 or 12 spot. What you'd have to what you'd have to bring in at that point is a 3-loss A&M team more impressive than a 2-loss SMU team that lost to BYU close and then lost to Miami in the ACC championship game. That's what the voters are going to have to try and compare. And just for example, and that's tough. That's really tough because I think SMU is really, really good. And people aren't paying a lot of attention because in the ACC, it's SMU. SMU is good. SMU versus A&M on a neutral field will be one hell of a football game. And I'd like to see it. I don't think we will, but I'd like to see it. But a 3-loss A&M team, the 3rd loss coming in the SEC championship game, a close loss to, say, Alabama, 27-24, got to kick a late game field goal. A&M's in the whole thing. I think that A&M team, having run the regular season table, close loss, I think A&M could be right in. It could be in the mix. Whether then at that point, I think it becomes what happens to some of those teams in front. What happens to Boise State? What happens to Washington State? Those things all become really sort of kind of crazy and interesting. But A&M's just got to take care of business one week after the next. Mexico State this week. New Mexico State's not a good football team. Diego Pavia is playing for Vanderbilt, not them anymore. Then got to take on Auburn. And I think Auburn is going to give A&M all it can handle. That's Auburn, Super Bowl. Auburn, I can't remember what Auburn's record is, but just getting to bowl eligibility, I think is going to mean beating A&M.
And Bama.
Beat Alabama. So there are going to be some things that that Auburn's going to, I mean, that's going to be Auburn's bowl game. So there are going to be some tough challenges. That's why I think winning out is going to end up looking a whole lot more impressive as a three-loss team than maybe normally. I think the playoff going forward, we're going to see 2 and 3 loss teams for sure. Absolutely. And I think this playoff could, obviously now it's out to 12 teams. I think 2 losses absolutely is going to get an at-large team in, no doubt. 3, I think is pushing it, but I think if anybody's going to do it, it's A&M because they've got some quality wins and they play in the top conference in the country.
Talking to Johnny Harris, by the way, I got a remedy for all that, Johnny. Just win the all 4. If you win these next 3, you win the SEC championship game, you're sitting pretty. Let's look at Tennessee, Georgia this weekend. Nico not going to play, or I don't know. He may not play. There's some questions about his concussion and the protocol. I guess Tennessee, in a way, can suffer a loss and still be okay. Georgia absolutely cannot. Well, unless you go back to what your line of thinking with A&M, looking at Georgia's schedule, the hardest schedule outside of Florida in the SEC, that maybe they could suffer a 3rd loss, but it would be happening later in the season, and that wouldn't be good.
Yeah, I think a couple of things with that, David. I think with Georgia, I think you're right. I think Georgia's got some perception. Sorry, I was saying this. They've got some advantages because they won a couple national championship years before. Or some people thought they got screwed out of the 4th spot last year. You know, those kind of things. But I'll be honest, I don't think Georgia's playing great football. I mean, against Ole Miss, you know, Perkins, Ivy, and Umamilan, they did whatever they wanted to. Like Ernest Green is still trying to block Princely and like having no shot. And I was moving a little bit on Saturday, so moving out of our house, and so I didn't get to see the full game. So I watched the first drive, and I'm like, oh man, Dart gets hurt, pick, scored 7. I'm like, this is going to be a blowout. I turn it on, it's 16-7 Ole Miss. I'm like, and then I'm watching that defensive line go berserk on Georgia. And oh, by the way, Tennessee's defensive line might be more complete, maybe not as explosive because Ole Miss's dudes are all on the edge. I haven't seen much from Walter Nolan this year in games I've watched, like where I'm like, oh yeah, like he's had some games. I haven't seen those games. I've seen them where it's been, okay. But I think Tennessee's defense line might be as good across the board as Ole Miss, and Georgia couldn't block them. So how is Georgia going to block Tennessee? Now the question becomes, does Nico play? Does he not play? To me, I don't like to say it's irrelevant, but I think Tennessee wants to get Dylan Sampson involved in the game and run him as much as possible. And I think that's where maybe it varies from Ole Miss. Ole Miss, once they put Dart back in the game, they will throw the ball and do whatever they wanted to against Georgia's secondary in the rain, mind you. So I think Nico is a big factor because also Nico can run, but I don't know how much he would with an injury. So I would keep an eye on that. I think this is Georgia's last house on the left, as my buddy Mark Vandermeer likes to say. I think we're going to either see the best game we've seen of Georgia, or we're going to see a team that just waves a white flag basically and is like, we're done. And I don't think there's any in between. I think it is they show up and win this game 28-3, or they end up getting beat at home and don't look good at all, and it's just done. And I think a big factor for that is also Carson Beck. Beck got beat up. He threw it horribly. He's thrown it horribly. He's gone basically from my quarterback 1 that I thought was going to be the top quarterback drafted to he should probably stay in school another year because he may not get drafted. It's looked that bad this year.
Johnny, I was going to let you go, but it just sparked another question. So Georgia looked really good against Texas for most of that game. Texas has not taken on a really good offense this year. They haven't. I think Texas is good. I agree with everything you said about talent-wise. Can Arkansas, if healthy, put up some points on Texas this weekend? Can they win?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Taylor Green is kind of a mystery because not so much his playing, but his play style is tough because he's long, lanky, can throw it, but you just don't know whether he's going to be in the game, whether he's limping with an injury. You just don't know. He's gotten so beat up. But Arkansas can run the football and punish you running the football. But to me, it's Taylon Green and whether Taylon can stay in the game for 60 minutes. If Taylon stays in the game for 60 minutes, I'll give Arkansas a shot. Absolutely. Arkansas has got a ton of offensive talent. but it's all dependent on whether Green stays in the game and whether Green is not throwing the ball to the other team. Arkansas can push them for sure. I don't dispute that. I don't know if they can put it over the top. I worry about that. But if Green's in the game for 60 minutes, hell yeah, I give Arkansas a shot. It's just a matter of, is he going to be in the game for 60 minutes? And the game's in Fayetteville where, Texas has tripped themselves up before. They've not played exceedingly well when they've been in Fayetteville as a non-conference foe. So, yeah, I absolutely. And it's an 11 o'clock game. I know fans are going to be all gassed up like they would be, and they were for the Tennessee game at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock. But I do give Arkansas a shot because they can put points up on the board. And I just don't think Texas is – I don't think Texas is as good as what we thought they were going into the Georgia game, or as what I thought they were. Talented, yes. And I would also keep an eye on Landon Jackson because that Arkansas offensive line – the Texas offensive line struggled against everybody that rushed the edge against Georgia. Everybody. So Landon Jackson, that's a guy that can have a big ball game, and he makes one turnover, gives an extra possession to Arkansas. I absolutely give Arkansas a chance. 13.5, that's the spread. I think you know where I would go with that. I'm going to pick Texas to win it, but it's going to be close.
Johnny, I appreciate it, man. Kept you long. Sorry about that.
No, man, no worries. Love you, brother. See you.
Love you, man. John Harris there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with an open segment. Then we'll talk to Max Wright. Right now, FBS Appliance and their team of experts are here to help you find the appliances that make your house a home. They carry all the top brands to make your life easier, and they can fit any budget. They've been caring for Texas since 1988. They're committed to customer satisfaction, and it's at the core of everything that they do. That's why they've assembled a team of trained sales professionals and experts in their field. They don't just stop at sales. They offer expert installation carried out by skilled technicians who are factory trained. They're committed to delivering an exceptional experience from start to finish. You can trust them to provide unparalleled service. They've got 8 showrooms across Texas. They got one right down the road from here on Welborn in College Station. Find them online at factorybuilderstores.com. That is factorybuilderstores.com. It's FBS. We're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Got a question before we go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, although Cooper can kind of pipe in. Nick, am I right? You don't have Netflix? Is that right?
I do.
Oh, you do have Netflix.
Don't watch much
television.
You know,
you're always working.
It's one of those deals where, I don't pay for it, to be quite honest with you.
Okay,
but,
you can't say that because now you get arrested.
Well, yeah, but you get what I'm saying.
Oh, family. It's a family thing. Yeah, I get it. So here's my question for the audience, and we're going to get a lot of negative feedback on this question. Is anybody at all interested in the fight on Friday night? Do you know the fight that's on Friday night?
Yeah, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, right?
Yeah.
They're doing that at Cowboys Stadium.
Is that where it is? Oh, I should have gone.
It's at Cowboys Stadium.
I should have gone to it.
I'd be interested to know what the attendance numbers are looking like right now, because I feel like you can't, there's no way you can sell 110,000 tickets to go watch that, to be quite honest with you.
So I got two thoughts on it. Tell me what you guys think. Are you interested in it, Cooper?
I'm interested.
Were you interested before I brought it up as a question?
I saw a lot in the YouTube chat about it.
That's the only reason you're interested? You're not interested then. Let's be honest. You're not interested.
I've been paying attention to the hype. I haven't watched the documentary or anything, but
I haven't either.
It's a gimmick fight.
It's a gimmick fight. That's my problem with it. If Mike Tyson, first off, I saw the Mike Tyson-Roy Jones fight, and I thought, oh my gosh, that was 4 or 5 years ago, right? I don't know.
I think so.
These old-timers look terrible. That's what I thought when I saw the fight. I've read a little bit about that fight since then, and what people have said is that there was an agreement where Mike was not going to go for Roy's head, right? They had kind of agreed on that. I don't know what kind of agreement Mike and Jake have for this, but there's a soundbite of Mike Tyson watching, I guess, Jake Paul talk, and what Mike basically says is he's a manufactured killer. I'm a real killer. So if there's no wink wink deal, I can go after you and kill you, Mike Tyson's going to destroy him. I don't care if he's, how old is Mike Tyson? 55?
He's
56?
He's 60. Let me see.
And you know what?
He's 58.
58 years old. And Jake Paul, I believe, is on steroids, 6'3". He's actually, his story's kind of cool because he has worked his way to be a great fighter. He actually has worked. But they're all fake fights. Yeah, but why is he
fighting a 60-year-old man? That's
because people will pay and watch it. Because Netflix paid him a lot of money for it. That's why.
Well, I think it's what you just said it was. Just a wink, wink, nod, nod. Let's both leave with $1 billion and
do you think Mike Tyson would actually do that, though?
Yes.
The killer that is Mike Tyson,
60,
who ate Evander Holyfield's ear off. You really think, I know he's been on movies and the face tattoo doesn't look as menacing as it once did. There is no chance. I don't know. What if Jake hits him one time, a little what? I don't know. I can't see Mike just being okay, but I might be wrong. And that's my trepidation. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. That's why I'm having reservations for not watching. I'm going to watch it, or maybe at least on Twitter.
So is it you have a Netflix subscription and you get to watch it, or is it pay-per-view?
I think so. But if you have to pay for it, I'm not paying for it.
No thanks. Yeah,
no.
I'm out.
I will never pay for a Jake Paul fight in my life. All right. We're way late for a break. I don't care. I know Max Wright's going to join us in a second. You had a couple of text messages that came in?
Yeah. Chris from College Station asks your take on Boise. And I'll just give you a little about them. They're ranked currently number 13 in the college football playoff ranking. 8-1 with a close loss to Oregon.
Yep. They should be in. They should be in. I believe they're the betting favorite to enter as the group of 5.
Yeah.
Their only loss is to the number 1 team in the country on the road, and it was close, correct?
Close, yeah. I think it was, I want to say a 3-point game.
All right. They have the best running back in college football. They have a very okay. They have a pretty good quarterback, Madison. Okay?
Yeah, that's right.
I think, yes, they should be in. Do I think they're one of the best 12 teams in college football? Probably not, right? But under the current rules of how we're doing this thing, yeah, they absolutely should be in. That's my opinion on it. Anything else?
Well, I think the Ashton Genty storyline from this could also play into them getting in the playoffs. He's a Heisman candidate right now, top 2, potentially could be winning it.
Yep.
I think that could be huge for them to market him if he gets on a national scale. I know a ton of people have not watched a full Ashton Genty game, except maybe outside the Oregon game. Do you think that potential marketing scenario could play into, I mean, either consciously or subconsciously play into the committee's head of like putting them in there so
You're
that.
saying, well, those marquee games would be after the Heisman.
I know, but like marketing it as like, I guess it could be a huge opportunity for a group of 5 team to have, one, have a Heisman winner, and then 2, be in the playoffs with that Heisman winner.
Sure. But
to market overall.
I think take away Genty Heisman campaign, their resume under the current guidelines is worthy enough of getting in. Having a guy who's been 1A or 1B the last month in most people's Heisman projections, absolutely is a reason. Just like I think Johnny, back in the day, like there's not that they're similar personalities, but when you're having a Heisman type season, there's way more eyeballs. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll be joined by Max Wright here on the other side. Right now, a moment for Lewis Engineering. They're headquartered in Marshall, Texas. They are family owned and operated. Doug Lewis runs the show over there, but he's not the only one. It was started in 1961 by his great-grandfather during the Vietnam War. They made these handheld signal flares, and they're still making those right now. And Doug is making sure that you know that they will supply so many different important industries in the United States, like the Department of Defense. They also help out aerospace industry, the automotive industry. They have 40 employees and are family owned and operated out of a 50,000 square foot facility. They specialize in high volume machining and metal plating projects. So if you need 100,000 pieces of high production, they are the ones to do it for you because they are a turnkey supplier. They'll do it all. They want to be your tailored source for metal fabricated parts. Call Doug Lewis up for a quotation, or a quote, I should say, 903-938-6754. That is 903-938-6754, or visit them online at lewisengineeringco.com. We're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. That's where we find Max Wright, who's joining us. Max, good morning, buddy.
Morning. How we doing?
Hey, I'm just curious. I don't think you heard. Did you hear the drama in the back a moment ago?
No, I did not. What was going on?
I mean, there are some tempers that work at TexAgs. That's all I got to say. People are changing the thermostat, and like there's like a war about to break out. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, so I don't know if that happens at your place there at Caldwell Properties, but it's happening here at TexAgs.
Oh, man. They let everybody touch the thermostat there? I don't think we get to do that here.
Well, I think that's the point that our director was saying. Like, he's in charge of the thermostat. We all get roles. Nick's in charge. Anyway, you pay attention to the college football rankings last night?
I did. I did indeed.
Any takeaways?
I think that we're in a good spot. I think that we have an opportunity to hopefully climb that if we do what we could do over the next 2 weeks. And I think it's really interesting, man. The SEC has just been beating itself up this season, man. Just losses. Every single team having losses all across the conference. I mean, it opens up opportunities for, and there's no clean cut, leader in the SEC now. And man, it's going to be an interesting final few weeks coming towards the end of the season.
You say we're in a good spot, and I agree with you. But here's what I'm worried about. And I've brought it up a couple days in a row because I do think it's something to consider. If A&M wins out, they'll be in the SEC championship game. If they don't win that game, I don't know if they're in the playoffs. And that would, it almost help you to be 10-2 and not play in it. But I want to go because A&M's never been to Atlanta. And I think if you win the next three, you're going to win that fourth one. That's kind of like the Aggie in me thinking that. But the reality is one team's going to win, one team's going to lose. If that second team has 2 losses already, are they out? And they might be.
I mean, man, this is where the playoff committee is going to have such a hard time with trying to figure out how they're going to handle the last few weeks. Because I think you're right. I think that, we went out, we get to the SEC championship and we lose that game. There might be an argument for us to not be in the playoff, after losing that. I do think that if we win the next 3, we have a really good chance to, win that 4th one in a row and set ourselves up to be a high-rated team in the playoff rankings. But, man, there's so many unpredictable things that can happen that I see your perspective of saying that if you do go 10-2, that maybe you have a better chance to get in. But I think that with, just how talented the SEC is and with the strength of our schedule, that if we went out and we get a chance to get into the SEC championship, I see this almost as a lock of getting into the college football playoff. I just don't think that you can exclude a team that has the record that we've had this season and has done as well as we do. If we go to Atlanta and we do well and we play a good game, either way, I think that the 2 teams that are going to get in the SEC championship, I'd be very surprised if they excluded both those teams.
So if you remember when Connor went down early in the season, there was questions like, look, I like what I've seen from Marcel Reed, but I don't know if he's going to be the guy, how well he can do. And then he showed he could do the job, right? So here we are in the exact same scenario with Amari Daniels, who we've seen do the job, but he's been the second guy. Now he's the top guy, and E.J. Smith is the second guy. So as much as I want to believe this team's formula will still work, I still kind of have to see it because you can't lose your best offensive player and also one of your best offensive linemen who's missed the last couple of weeks and expect for the offense to just kind of pick up and be the team that we've seen for most of this year.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. That's what if you brought this up, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's definitely, you lose a lot of strength in your offense whenever your best offensive player goes down, just like you said. And then also Chase Basantes being down is a huge loss. I mean, Mark Naboo, losing him early in the year. I mean, you're playing with, technically 2 backup offensive linemen in there. And they've done a great job responding to that call and moving the football. I think what this falls on now is the quality of coaching that we have in that coaching room. Can they do what needs to be done, utilizing the weapons in the offense to still make the offense dangerous? I think that there still are plenty of weapons that can be used to, be put in the backfield alongside Amari Daniels, who has proven himself. You're right. He's been more of a supporting role. His numbers are still great all season. And I think this falls on the coaching staff and their ability to go, all right, we have talent. We have some younger talent that's in this, offense that how can we move these guys around to still give defenses problems? Maybe it's using Terry Bussey back there. Maybe it's putting him in the backfield some alongside E.J. Smith and Amari. Maybe it's, utilizing more, jet sweep play action type stuff in our offense to add to the run game. I think that when you have injuries like we've had this season, which have been very frustrating, because I feel like, man, if we have a healthy roster going into this part of the season, I don't doubt our team against anybody. But, this is the hand we've been dealt. So I think that this falls on our coaching staff, and I trust them. I think that they've done a great job this season at responding to the injuries that we've had. But man, it's going to be interesting how they utilize some new characters consistently in this offense who maybe haven't been main roles. The loss of Le'Veon has been huge. And I just know how much that guy loves playing ball. Like he just always says that he's just playing ball out there. He's a huge loss for the offense, but I expect him to find a way to still find ways to be explosive.
Max, can I tell you a secret?
Yes, sir.
I don't like the jet sweep. I don't like it at all. Like I look at that play.
Really?
Yeah. Like I mean, at least this year I haven't liked. There was the one Terry Bussey play that went for. Was that again? Who was that against? It was early in the season. Bowling Green, McNeese. Thank you. I just and I know those plays work for other teams, but I just every time I see it for us, I'm like, oh, I don't want to run it right now. And,
yeah.
Am I in the minority there?
No. So this is where it's kind of a toss up. If you have a dangerous threat who's fast enough to get around the edge to make defenses worry about it, then it can be a problem where defenses genuinely have to be concerned about that jet sweep. And I think where you can add a compliment to it is with Marcel and Marcel's ability, as we've seen, for him to run downhill with speed and hit holes. So, I mean, if you can get linebackers caught up in flow and expose them with quarterbacks being able to run downhill fast and, having a good running back who can also add to kind of the deception back there, it works. But it is a hit or miss play. It is. It's either going to go for, 20 yards plus, or it's going to be a 1 or 2 yard gain. So it's one of those plays where it's kind of a risk reward thing. Maybe if you try it a few times in the game, it works. You don't try it again, but there are games when it is working, and there are games whenever it definitely doesn't. So I see your feeling there, and I understand why you feel that way.
You remember early in the season, I would ask you every week, hey, they're not getting a lot of looks, but when they get the looks, the tight ends are making some big plays. I feel like that's not been as consistent recently. Do you think now that with the injury to Le'Veon, maybe those short yard passes to the tight ends might be something we see more?
Absolutely. I think that's anytime that you lose kind of your centerpiece of your offense, you have to get more production from every area that you can. And I think that the tight ends are one of the areas where they can produce more. I think they're plenty capable to go out and make plays, which we saw early in the season. Theo is, really impressed me this year in his growth, and same with Trey Watson and some of those other guys. Those guys have impressed me, and I think that they're ready to be called on to get more looks and to get more action. And I think that in Coach Klein's offense in the past, he's had really good receiving tight ends. Last year at Kansas State, his leading receiver on their offense was a tight end. So I know that he has the plays in the playbook to utilize the tight ends more. So I think that they will be definitely one of the roles that gets a lot more targets over the next few weeks.
Talking to Max Wright here. So let me close out with this thought. The bye week, the open week comes, and I don't know if there's ever a good time or a bad time, but I feel like because of the injury to Le'Veon, they were able to maybe iron out some things. Just talk about the timing of it and what's still ahead with A&M having 3 games, and we know what they have to do to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, that injury, never a good timing thing. Obviously losing Le'Veon is never a good thing. But in regards to being able to take a week to maybe test out some things and feel out this offense with the loss of him, it is huge. And then being able to come into a game against New Mexico State is maybe a game where they can try some things and see if, different guys can be utilized in different positions to, best produce for the offense. I think that bye weeks are great towards the end of the season. If, you have some guys who've been injured and you got to get some things figured out and you got to put some pieces together for the offense, it gives your team a chance to kind of hit a reset where it's like, okay, it gives you almost a week of camp-like practices where you can go in there, you can have physical practices, good on good against the defense, run some plays that you're kind of experimenting with as an offense. So I think that the loss of Le'Veon's huge. No one doubts that. But I do think that moving forward, Coach Klein and Coach Elko are going to have a big call on them to to still find a way to have this offense be explosive in the same way it's been over the past few weeks.
That is Max Wright. Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Yes, sir. Sounds good. Gig 'em.
Gig 'em. Max right there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break. We will come back with a short open segment right now. It's game week. If you're headed to the game this Saturday, the Association of Former Students wants to invite you to the All Aggie Hullabaloo. Make the Clayton W. Williams Jr. Alumni Center your game day headquarters this weekend, where you can enjoy free drinks courtesy of Yeeling and City Orchard Cider, free sodas from Boots Beverage, free Slovakic sausage, and free barbecue samples there from Shopiffs. Sorry, I'm trying to say it correctly. Barbecue. You can also do some pregame shopping at Vendor Marketplace at CC Creations, Southwick Kyle, Major League Madison, and Kona Ice. There's also going to be a fun zone with games, prizes for kids. Plus, if you have questions about your Aggie ring and you need to have it resized, the Aggie Ring office will be open throughout the event. The All Aggie Hullabaloo starts at 3:45 this week, and admission is totally free. Register now at tx.ag/AAH6. Again, that is tx.ag/AAH6. And if you're driving and can't write it down, the information is also posted on a few threads on TexAgs. We'll be back. It is TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know we got a text message to get into.
Yeah, we're going to go to Madden's text. Madden from Houston's text. He says, if Georgia didn't get in with one loss, talking about last year, after losing the championship, A&M for sure won't get in at 10-3.
I don't think A&M is going to get in at 10-3 either. but I would like to make an argument for them to get in if it's 12 teams and not 4. So I don't know if we completely know that. But it's my fault. I brought up this topic way too many times. Just don't lose it. And then we don't have to have the discussion.
It's that simple.
If you win every game left on your schedule, you win the national championship.
It's easy, basically.
I mean, it ain't easy, but the formula's easy, right?
Formula's easy.
Right?
Simple, but hard.
It's a Nuñoism right there. Difficult, but hard. Look, just beat New Mexico State, which we all know they will. Beat Auburn, cool. Then beat Texas. And then we can start worrying or not worrying, right? Because what if it is a matchup against LSU? What if it is? So, look, I feel good about it. I feel good that it'll take care of itself if the A&M does what they need to do. Before we hit a break, let's talk about Heritage Films. That's Chance McClain's company. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. They make documentary films about families and family businesses and family ranches and life experiences. So, like, I know Chance told me the other day, a bunch of Aggies have called them to talk about their time at A&M. They wanted to do a documentary about that. You can do that and combine it with your kids doing a year flicks about their time at A&M. Freshman year, a little Q&A 20-minute video to kind of know about their freshman year, their sophomore year, their junior year. Let Chance and his team do a documentary for you. The website, yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com. 713-893-8341. That's 713-893-8341. It's Heritage Films. And we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It's time for Recruiting Country. Brought to you by Caprock Health System, a faster patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in the Bryan College Station area. You got the original 24-hour ER in South College Station on William D. Fitch, and you've got the full-service hospital with ER in Bryan on Briarcrest. Learn more online at caprockhealthsystem.com. And with that, we've got Ryan Brauninger in studio.
Yeah, when I hosted last Thursday and Friday.
Fantastic job, by the way.
I appreciate that.
I didn't listen, but I just know it was good because you're good at what you do.
I was, I take some veiled shots when you're not here.
I know you do.
They're not veiled. They're actually out in the open, but I know you're not listening. So
tell me some of the shots.
I feel more comfortable. No, I was, I had Aaron Torres on, and we talked about.
He for sure took a shot. He
was like, "Where's Nuño?" Nuño doesn't ever work in the season, just whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, it's actually really funny whenever you figure out where he's at, and he wanted me to tell him what you were doing. I was like, no, it'd be better that it comes from David. And then you hit us all with the Instagram post, which I think cleared the air for everybody. And some of the comments I was scrolling through your Instagram, they're like, I never thought they like. People were like,
people I grew up with are like, what?
What are you doing? Yeah. So it was Rambo for the pheasants. That's what you described yourself, that you were going to be like Rambo to shoot very small birds, 3-pound birds.
Honestly, I think some of you guys know this. There used to be a little bit of a fear with a firearm. Didn't have a fear at all. I was ready to knock fools out.
Do you think that your MMA training has helped you overcome a lot of your fears?
No, I think my MMA training has taught me that I know nothing about MMA. That there's so much that I need to learn that I might get myself hurt if I ever had to use MMA.
I have kept the video of you and Billy's spar in the lobby. That may make its way to. I think a perfect time to have that video played for the masses.
Sure.
Would be whenever maybe we're all in here for signing day.
Yeah, but see, here's the difference between you and I. You enjoy making fun of folks.
No,
that's a fact.
Stop. That's not true.
When do I take proactive shots at anybody?
Okay, this is your go-to defense for yourself.
It's the truth.
What did I say right there that you could take offense to where I was making fun of you? I have a video, and y'all knew that I was videoing of you two play sparring in the lobby.
Yep.
And it's funny. It's genuinely funny. Because Billy thinks he knows things, right?
Billy's a big dude.
Right. But the masses need to see it and they can interpret the footage for themselves.
That's fine. The one thing I remember about that video.
But there was nothing that I said that could be.
No, I know, but I know how your brain works. I know how your brain works. I'm gonna put other people on video blast so others can comment and laugh. That's how you operate. That's fine. All I know is.
Does this have to do with what I sent you yesterday?
Oh, no. That was.
Hey, easy.
That was you. Anyway.
Also, when I was hosting, my point to that whole thing was that I think, and I told Billy this, we need a model NASCAR to put on the desk with all of our sponsors on it.
Buddy, it's a good time to be a business owner at TexAgs.
It is. I was like, with your brain, we've talked about this a bunch. Your brain works differently than mine. So with your color-coded ad reads, and they're all different for all the different, and I couldn't. My brain could not compute what I was supposed to read, when I was supposed to read it. So if we're short on mentions for a sponsor this month, I'll wear that.
Well,
because I can't, I was like, if I had a NASCAR in front of me with every sponsorship on it, maybe you get you a NASCAR jacket. That'd be a great Christmas gift.
Hey, we have eight sponsor reads in the first segment. It's good for TexAgs.
Yeah, I was
and by the way, our first segment is usually really good too.
I was like, I didn't know, Coffee Talk, Holistic Planning, Cool Zone, Maroon U,
Rollo
Insurance, David Gardner, and I'm like, this is just in one segment.
Yeah.
You are a company. You're a sold man.
I know what's going to keep me employed.
All right.
Should we talk? Can I ask you one little thing? The same thing I asked earlier. Are you interested in Tyson, Jake Paul, or no?
Not at all.
Okay, good.
Not at all.
I'm
Mike Tyson's still one of the baddest men that ever walked the planet.
No matter what happens.
No matter what happens.
I'm interested in it because Mike Tyson represents us old folks, and us old folks, we're ready to roll if it comes down to it.
I don't know cardiovascularly, how can he, if it goes longer than.
Old people can run.
I'm not saying they can't run. But it's not as easy for you to get up and run and keep running as it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's just as easy. It's the same. It hasn't changed.
Okay.
Nothing changed.
All right.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, you've lost my interest.
Okay. In, 3 weeks, on a day like day.
It's December 4th.
Okay. 3 weeks we will be sitting in here for National Signing Day, which it is still a signing day.
They're just not signing letters of intent. They're signing grant and aid paperwork for all intents and purposes. We are going to view it the same way, and we are going to produce it in the same way. So whenever you see content coming out from TexAgs on that Wednesday, it will say signed like it normally would. So, but there is not a national letter of intent anymore. It's just the grant and aid paperwork that they were typically signing to go with their national letter of intent. But to keep everything kind of consistent, and so that people aren't, there are a lot of folks that really look forward to signing day still. It's one of their favorite days of the year. So we want to try to replicate what they've been used to for as long as they have. Again, they're still signing. It's just not a letter of intent.
That could be a really fun week for multiple reasons. If A&M football in the field takes care of business, it could be a real busy week.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. The NCAA has toyed with the date of this early signing day. There's been some talk about moving it to the end of August. I think that would be. There's too much still at stake. There's too much fluidity of what could happen in a football season and coaching changes and like that. But, you look at a place, and I think it's part of the reason why Scott Strickland at Florida had to come out in favor of Billy Napier, because if you are left in flux after your final week of the season, if they were going to fire Billy Napier, they'd have to fire him, that Sunday night?
Right.
And then your signing class is Wednesday? How on earth are you supposed to do that? So I do think, much like A&M did with Jimbo Fisher, a year
ago today,
right? If you are going to make a decision to fire a head coach or to keep him, it's going to have to be made public 3 or 4 weeks before the end of the season. You couldn't even if Florida would have kept Billy Napier after the final week of the season, to have this 3-week window where everybody's talking about it, waffling back and forth. Is he staying? Is he leaving? That's too much. Like, you are setting yourself up for failure in the recruiting class, and you're putting chinks in your own armor by doing it that way. So whatever you're going to do in terms of your head coach, if you're making a move or you're going to keep him, you need to have a definitive answer by that before mid-November going forward, if they're going to keep this December 4th date. But they moved it up because with the expanded playoff, they felt like this was the perfect time between conference championships and the start of the playoff. Like, when else could you do it? If you keep it toward the end of December, then the teams that are still playing are at a real disadvantage, because they're trying to, at least at that December 4th date, it's kind of as level of a playing field as you're going to get for the month of December.
What about going like it used to be, just February?
In February? Yeah, I think there's some thought about going all the way back to that. And I don't know what the counterpoint to that is, other than, and it really doesn't matter for early enrollees, because they're going to show up regardless, whether they sign a national letter of intent or not. Remember, if you go back and 10 years ago, these kids that were showing up early on campus, they were just showing up.
Right.
They didn't have a signing day, so they were already on campus. So we'll see how that goes. But for right now, what's interesting with this A&M class is, the just incredible number of early enrollees. There's only one that we're kind of waiting to see if they're in or out early. All the other ones are, and it's Josh Moses. All the other ones are going to sign and enroll early as of right now.
Disregard, Jimbo was fired on the 12th. I did my first show on the 13th about Jimbo's firing. I was looking at my notes. So it was actually yesterday, a year ago. Let's talk about the final push, though, because there's some names out there still that they need to put some final touches on.
Well, I don't know that you need to.
You'd like to?
Yeah, I think you'd certainly like to add a Lamont Rogers or Michael Fasusi, a premier tackle, another premier tackle prospect in this class. I think you'd like to, in an ideal scenario, maybe add one more skill player, but it's got to be the right guy. Again, I've said it for the last month or so. Everybody is kind of up in arms. The one position in this class that folks are up in arms about is wide receiver. I just don't think they're going to go out and add a wide receiver just to add one. If somebody calls between now and signing day and says, hey, I'm interested, he's committed elsewhere, whatever, and it's a player that they've held in high regard, then that pursuit will happen.
Right.
As of now, I don't have a name for you to fulfill that, that projected or that kind of what if scenario. I don't have a name that I could say, yeah, it's Jerome Miles, or CJ Wiley. In fact, he just committed to Georgia. So I do think that if there is a skill player out there that they like, they would add them. But they're not going to do it just to fill a numbers box.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So outside of those two tackles, it's really, Javion Hilson out of Florida.
Yep.
I think it's actually A&M Texas in Central Florida, which is interesting because he's from because he's from there. And Toby Hastrup from Katy Maid Creek, who is still going on all of his visits. Nothing's changed on that front. There was a national article that went out that said Toby Hastrup's going to make a signing day decision. Well, he told me that in person 3 weeks ago. He's planning on taking all of his visits and then deciding in December. So we'll see where A&M lands on the other side. So A&M was this first. He went to A&M twice before he went anywhere else. Obviously, his sister's in school here. It's right up the road. He's got great familiarity with the town of College Station, the school, and then now also the football program. So we'll kind of see where A&M ends up after all these other visits that he's gone on. But really, outside of those four names, unless I'm missing something, you never rule out any kind of flip in recruiting. Like if you just say these four names are it, you're really opening yourself up to
be wrong,
to have some egg on your face because of just the nature of what recruiting is. But for right now, in terms of what's out there, those are the main four names that we're tracking.
All right. I know you hate this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway because I think the audience wants it. They're craving this. Where could surprises come from?
I think if you're looking for surprises, you'd have to comb back through some of the summer visitors that we had, A&M had some momentum with, and either the communication broke down from one side or both sides or whatever, and they committed elsewhere. What I'm saying is there's not an uncommitted player out there outside of those four names that I think A&M is in the hunt for. So if you were looking for surprises, it would probably be maybe something in state that has quietly remained in communication, like a recruitment that has kind of under the radar. They've kept in touch with A&M. A&M's kept in touch back. But again, there's not a name that pops out, and I wouldn't even begin to throw out names because I know how this stuff gets clipped. Just not even going to open myself up to that. So if you're looking for a potential surprise, it would probably be for somebody in state or that maybe is committed elsewhere, or somebody go back to those spring, summer visitor lists that A&M had some momentum with at one point.
Tell me if this is a fair way to say it, but it feels like there's, intrigue's not the right word. I'm trying to find a way to say it, but I feel like we know what this class is probably going to look like. Is that, I know there's always
you know exactly what it's going to look like.
And compared to years past where we think they're going to have the best recruiting class of all time, but I feel like they're comfortable with their crew right now.
Yeah, and they haven't expanded their umbrella to add new names to it. So the current class has been rock solid for a long time. Now, again, they've been fighting battles with USC, with Oregon out west, with Texas here in the state, with LSU. So, but they've done a good job, man. There was some real Texas momentum with Chase Sims in the middle of the year. A&M was able to get him back on campus and shut that down. So if you go individual by individual, you could look at it, whether it be Noah McHale or DJ Sanders or Hassan Longstreet, and say, okay, these guys have really been firmly committed, but there were some times when other schools were trying to chip away, and A&M did a good job of squashing it. So, it seems like the staff has done a lot of their work. They got a bunch of these kids committed, and then a lot of their time and effort has been spent on keeping them rock solid and keeping the class intact.
I know you've answered this 1,000 times, but Hassan Longstreet, USC is always going to be after. I mean, that's been the case, right?
Well, the kind of pivot point here would be Julian Lewis, who's committed to USC, their quarterback commit. If he were to, there's some smoke about him in Colorado. There's been some smoke about him in Georgia. If something like that would come to fruition where he backs off his pledge to USC, I think then Lincoln Riley would go all in on Hassan Longstreet and try to flip him late. I just don't know at this point if it would be enough.
Okay.
We're getting so late in the game. He's got so many established relationships in College Station. He's comfortable here. The family's comfortable here. Colin Klein handpicked him across the country early on.
Yeah.
I think those, again, you never say never in recruiting because you're just setting yourself up to look like a fool because of the fluidity of the whole situation of the entire industry. But I feel good about A&M holding on, regardless of what happens with Julian Lewis.
Does it look like Julian Lewis is probably going to go elsewhere?
Dude, you're better off asking a Colorado insider or a USC insider. Like, because we cover one school, I would have to make calls to somebody covering those schools to see what they think. But
it's out there, though. It's
out there, but it's one of these things that, like, everything right now is being put out there for the sake of clicks.
Yep.
And I saw something this week that I thought was well over the line from a national recruiting analyst that now covers one specific team, that I thought was just over the line and like insinuating things in it. I don't get it. Like, so you got to kind of be able to sift through what's being reported and then the reasons behind it. What's the reason behind these things being reported nationally? Is it to generate and drive clicks right here 3 weeks before signing day, or is it legit? So, which
is why at TexAgs we typically report the legit.
Yeah, and there's
not typically, we do report the legit.
There are certain things that should be made public, and there's some things that the public doesn't need to know about. And like, I'm not withholding any kind of big information here, but it's just, again, I question the motives of some of the stuff that you see from national media. Again, and I like some of these guys that are doing it. I'm not trying to put them down as human beings or journalists or recruiting analysts or anything like that. I just don't know what they're asked to do from their company, in order to drive traffic.
Right. All right, let's hit a break here. When we come back, if you have a question for Bonnie, you can send that on the Little Sluggers text line, 979-693-1150. We'll ask Bonnie those questions on the other side. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Find them on Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. If you're looking for a truck, that's the place to go. If you're looking for a new vehicle, that's the place to go. They have a great selection that you can pick from. You can start your search online and see what they have. Then make the drive out there to Caldwell. I think you're going to be very impressed with not only the selection, the feel, but just the great customer service you get from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Locally owned and operated by Aggie alumni. Complimentary pickup and delivery for service customers. Free oil changes for life on the life of your purchase as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. And remember, they are a proud supporter of Aggie athletics. It's not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes. The edge of Bryant to the beginnings of Caldwell. A short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. And we're back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Recruiting Country, brought to you by Caprock Health System. Ryan Brauninger is with us here in studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know some people are sending in some questions on the YouTube page and on the Little Sluggers text line. Coop, what do you have for us?
Yeah, Bronny, we got a question from Rudy from Dallas. And he emphasizes no here. He says, what do we know about Jonte Cook?
Well, we know that he's from DeSoto, that he was a highly coveted recruit out of high school, and we know that he is leaving Texas. Outside of that, we don't know much in terms, especially if you're asking from an A&M perspective. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff on Twitter, on social media, again, about him and A&M. There's also been stuff about him in Oregon, him in Ole Miss, him in SMU. What I would say right now is he's no different than any other kid that is potentially going into the transfer portal. The only thing that happened with him is that he has announced that he hasn't announced, but it came out that he's no longer with the Texas program. So whatever his timeline looks like or whatever his recruitment looks like is sped up, or is it just happening earlier than everybody else's, all the other receivers that are going to go in, or all the other players, for matter of fact, that are going to go into the portal. But I don't even know what the transfer portal is not open. So because the kid is no longer with the football team, I don't even know if he's enrolled at the university. Does that mean he can be recruited by other schools and talk to other schools? I don't know. How does that even work anymore? Are there any rules?
There are no rules
anymore. But what I would say in terms of like A&M, I think that he's probably no different than any other player that they are going to scout out of the portal. There's got to be homework done to definitively say one way or the other. And I probably got a little bit ahead of myself. I posted on the boards that A&M was not going to recruit him. That was probably a little bit too early. You just start making phone calls, and Jason's super connected in Dallas. And to say that A&M is for sure recruiting him, way too early to say. To say A&M is definitely not going to.
Way too early again.
Yeah. I think they're going to do their homework no different than anybody else that goes into the portal. So,
and when you say homework, that can mean multiple things.
There's a lot that goes into that. But in the end, I think it comes down to one man's decision. And if Mike Elko thinks that the player will, A, help them win football games, and B, help their culture, then I think he'll be a take. If either one of those is answered as a no, he's not a take.
Yeah.
Point blank, period, end of story. You can be as nuanced as you want with this, but if you want to be black and white, does Mike Elko think he's going to help them win? Does Mike Elko think he's going to help promote the culture that he's built so far this year? Both of those questions have to be answered in the affirmative. If there's one that doesn't fit the criteria, they're not going to recruit him.
Anything else, Coop?
Yeah, Randy in the YouTube chat, he asked, do you think at any point A&M's going to really hit the portal hard for a wide receiver?
Yes, when it opens, I think they're going to hit the portal extremely hard for wide receivers. Very, very hard. In fact, that's the position of most intrigue when the portal opens, for us covering it, for the fan base, I'm sure for even the coaching staff. And with how the portal is working now, it's almost like you need an entire separate department of your recruiting office for portal.
Yep.
Because the phone calls that happen, whether they come from high school coaches, parents, trainers, that's why you never want to burn a bridge for a kid in high school. Even if you think he's not a take for you coming out of high school, you treat the kid with respect.
You never know.
You over communicate with him. You be honest with him. One of the reasons why Mike Elko got Nick Scorton was because he was honest with him coming out of high school. And then when he went into the portal, he was honest with him again about, I messed up.
Right.
I liked your tape. I didn't know where you fit. I thought you were a man without a home positionally. And that's my fault. I screwed that up. But A&M had told Nick that whenever he's at Bryan High. So that stuff does pay dividends down the road. And now even more so than ever with the loose player movement that can happen year to year, you never want to go into a kid may pop up on your radar that you really want, and you'll have no chance to get him because of how you treated him in high school. You just never know how all this stuff, everybody's timeline is different, right? Everybody's development timeline is different. And A&M has proven that they will scour the country at every different level to find the right players. And you look at what they brought in this last transfer portal haul, where those kids came from, they hit on a very, very high percentage of them, whether it be Des Ricks from Alabama or Marcus Ratcliffe from San Diego State. and every program in between, their hit rate has been really, really high. So they're doing a good job. And like I said, I think last time I was on radio with you was like you got Elko has earned the benefit of the doubt.
100%.
You gave him the benefit of the doubt when he came in because he was new. And now all he's done and his staff has done is earned the benefit of the doubt. So I believe that they're going to go into this portal with a plan, and they're going to take players that fit those two criteria I mentioned earlier. Can you help us win football games? Can you help continue to build the culture we want?
Well, in the first segment, I don't know if you heard it with OB, I mentioned, look, I don't know what the record's going to look like. I think it's going to be significantly better than last year. But let's say it's not significantly better than last year. Let's just for this, all you have to do is look at this program and you know it's in the right direction.
Well, and obviously they have fixed a lot of stuff. Schematically, it's different. It's more efficient on the field. And all the stuff that we thought coming in. The one area where I'd be like, I thought it would be a little bit better is the penalties. I thought they'd be a little bit cleaner than that, but maybe it's just going to take a little bit longer to do that. Again, Mike Elko in his introductory press conference said there is no elevator to this thing. We got to take the stairs. Yep. So what has the stairs included, in my opinion? It's been the low-hanging fruit that they've cleaned up that has allowed them to be in a position in late November to do things like if you go in this week and then you beat Auburn, that Texas game becomes one of the biggest games in program history, bar none.
Bar none.
You've never played with a chance in this late in the season, not only to go to the SEC championship game, which is something you've never done, win the SEC championship, and then go to a playoff. All those things have never been done. It would be the most wins in a full season since 2012, right? Most SEC wins in a full season since 2012. And then the COVID year, they went 8-1, 9-game SEC schedule. By the way, the defensive coordinator was Mike Elko. But it'd be the first time for a 12-game season since Johnny was here that you've won that many games in the regular season.
And I think that year they went 6-2. This year that would be a 7-1.
Right. So there's so much on the table, and if you're walking into that Saturday against Texas with all that on the line, obviously, you want to win the game because of what it would mean. But I think if you'd have told Mike Elko in August, this is going to be your scenario, you're walking into the renewal of the rivalry with Texas with this on the line, he'd have taken it in a big, big way.
100%.
So how has that happened? To me, it's as simple as like you just start talking to people. They're not missing class. They're not missing workouts. They're not missing meals. That's low-hanging fruit that should be getting done at every program across the country. But just cleaning that up, I think, personally, him just tackling those problems below the surface level has allowed them to be in this position that they're in. It's been that's been the culture change.
100%. You got any more, Coop, before we hit a break?
Nothing else, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Coop. Thank you, Bronny. Appreciate you.
Am I done?
Do you want to stay for another question?
What do you have?
I've got Peter Burns. We can push him back.
Peter's more important than me.
By the way, I was going to, I should ask you this because I didn't ask you.
It's baseball signing day.
Say baseball signing day?
So I'm going to pen an article. If you're looking for baseball signing day content, I'm going to do probably a 4 to 5 sentence scouting report on the kids they're signing.
Okay.
It'll go out tonight. One big one still left out there. One of the best players in the country, Cruz Schoolcraft out of Oregon.
Great name.
It's a really great name. He's 6'8", 215 pounds, up to 98 on the mound, and also swings the bat like Jay Slavolette.
Holy smokes.
Special player. It's highly unlikely that kid he's going to go play for the University of the New York Yankees probably.
Yeah.
But you'd rather have him committed and then try to work through the MLB draft stuff than him obviously be committed elsewhere. From what I've been able to gather, that recruitment is down to A&M and LSU.
Wow.
So it's I don't know. He was just in Baton Rouge last weekend, but I also know that he's been very consistently communicating with A&M. It'd be interesting to see what happens. That one's probably not going to be announced until next week. But that is if A&M lands him, and we could do a whole nother segment on the baseball recruiting, but if A&M lands Cruz Schoolcraft, that would put them in the top probably 3 classes nationally with way, way less commits than the 2 classes ahead of them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And before I let you go, playoffs start this weekend?
Yeah, so Thursday night, if you are local in Bryan College Station, you're listening to this, and you want to go see a future Aggie play on Thursday night, Belleville and DJ Sanders playing at Merrill Green Stadium Thursday night at 7 against Waco Connolly. And then Friday night, A&M Consolidated, their kicker, Colton Schmeller, is coming here. They play at home again, and Colton is back both as a receiver and as a kicker. He missed most of the season with a quad injury. But I will be at both of those games. So Thursday night, I'll be at Merrill Green Stadium in Bryan for Belleville, Waco, Connolly. Friday night, I'll be at A&M Consolidated to see them play Friendswood.
Thank you, Brauninger.
Yep.
Appreciate you. You'll like this one. Bird Dog Time, Aggie owned and operated, creating access to hunting opportunities. I went on my first hunt last week in Brady, Texas, had a blast. And for me, the hunting was awesome, right? But it was actually the fellowship that went with it, the bonding, the talking, the Aggie football stories, and it was just an awesome event. And they can do these events for you, a group, friends, you name it, and they can just find you the right opportunity because what they are is an Airbnb for hunters and for the ranchers. They connect the hunting population to the ranches. They hook up the ranchers with more opportunities on their land. It is fantastic what they do. They take care of new hunters like myself. They take care of seasoned hunters, ranch consulting, service for landowners looking up to start a hunting operation or just optimize what they have going. Check out the website. You'll be very pleased when you do. birddogit.com. That is birddogit.com. Check it out. ESPN, I don't care. I just got an alert that the Colts are going back to Anthony Richardson. I don't care. I don't know why I keep getting. I feel like I've gotten more alerts on that quarterback situation than, I don't know. Did everybody else's phone go off for this? I don't care about it.
Mine didn't.
Huh. I'm not a Colts fan. I don't care. Cool. Figure it out. Keep losing. It's TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We are in the Rollo Insurance Studio, hour number 3 of the program. It looks like Peter Burns cannot join us today. No problem. We'll just continue talking through. I want to read a couple things here because Cooper puts together this awesome packet every week about the team that we're about to play. And I'm going to start talking to a couple insiders today to get a little bit more sense of New Mexico State. But if you're wondering about their offense, their quarterback is Santino Marucci. Sound good? Let's say it like that.
Sound good, yeah.
Okay. And can you remind the folks who their quarterback was a year ago?
I don't.
You don't know. It's okay.
I don't know.
It's all right. Nick, do you know who the quarterback of New Mexico State was a year ago?
Diego Pavia.
Thank you very much for that. Diego Pavia.
I know that.
So, yeah. So, and Callie was reminding me that Diego Pavia has beaten he's beaten Hugh Freeze 3 straight years. Because New Mexico State last year beat Auburn. Okay? Vandy beat Auburn this year. I think I'm right about that.
Yeah.
And a couple years ago, New Mexico State beat Liberty when Hugh Freeze was the head coach at Liberty. So I'm just saying.
Interesting.
But that's Diego Pavia. This is New Mexico State without him. Santino Marucci. All right, they got another quarterback who's been playing. So Santino Marucci's got 3 touchdowns, 5 picks on the year. By the way, they're not very good. I think you know that. Record-wise, they're 2-7 on the year. They beat Missouri State. They lost to Liberty. They got destroyed by Fresno State, 48-0. They lost to Sam Houston, 31-11. They beat their rivals, and you can throw out the record book whenever they play their rivals in New Mexico. They beat them 50-40. They lost to Jacksonville State, 54-13. Double overtime victory over La Tech. That's impressive right there. They lost to FIU, Florida International, 34-12. Western Kentucky spanked them, 41-28. Now they got A&M, Middle Tennessee, and UTEP left on their season. Their top running back is a gentleman by the name of Seth McGowan Jr. He's got 626 yards rushing on the year, is averaging 5.2 yards per carry. Another guy who's actually having a really nice year in the backfield is Mike Washington, who's got 524 yards rushing. They got a couple receivers that don't have huge numbers, but they have not gotten the consistent quarterback play that we saw, obviously, from Diego Pavia. They have Santino Marucci. All right, Cooper, what else do you have for us?
Yeah, well, let me start. Aggie volleyball is set to take on the Oklahoma Sooners at 7 p.m. tonight in
They
Norman.
need it.
They need this one, yeah. This is the first matchup the Aggies will have with the Sooners since their move to the SEC. But historically, the Aggies have dominated this matchup 36-9. After coming off 2 straight losses, this is a huge matchup for A&M, with both teams currently sitting at 6-6 in the conference.
Okay, they got to take care of business.
Huge game tonight.
I got actually a question that came up. If you don't mind, if I read it before you go to your next story, the Aggie kid, and I think Nick can play a role in this. Cooper, you can play a role in this. I know my answer is easy. The Aggie kid on the YouTube page says, Nuño, this may be a dumb question to ask, but would you rather finish in the top 3 in recruiting this year, transfer and high school, or would you rather beat Texas? I would rather beat Texas, but not because it's Texas, because what beating Texas would mean. I would rather beat Texas because I'm hoping that means you beat New Mexico State and Auburn, and you're on your way to the SEC championship game. I think in today's world, I think the right coach is going to go a lot further than having top 3 talent. You do need the top 3 talent, don't get me wrong. But in year 1 of Mike Elko, if you were to tell me that you're going to be at the very worst 9-3, beating Texas, going to a nice bowl game, or potentially going to the SEC championship game over a top 3, I think the recruiting will take care of itself. So my answer is to beat Texas, and I know there's a lot of ifs in that. Nick, what say you?
Yeah, it's a possibility that both those things happen anyway, right? Because again, we'll see what the matchup is. The Saturday after Thanksgiving, good chance A&M might be favored in the game, but they have a chance to win. And, the recruiting class for the 2025 cycle is already pretty highly ranked. Transfer portal, I guess, that depends. Like, you would hope you don't have to take that many guys, right? Like, it's not going to be the same amount of people that were taken in this past, cycle, because for obvious reasons. But, I think it's a very good chance that A&M adds some good depth in the portal as well. But again, I think the recruiting class could be good or will be good, and then A&M has a really good chance of beating Texas. So why not both, right?
Aggie Kid, thank you very much for the question. Cooper, what was your thought on it?
I really think beating Texas is so much more important than a top 3 recruiting class. Simple fact that I think beating Texas could help get you that top 3 recruiting class. There's going to be so many visitors in that game. It's going to be, might break attendance records at Kyle Field. Honestly, I think it probably will. Might be the craziest game this year, which is awesome to think about how awesome both Notre Dame and the LSU games have been. I think beating Texas there is huge. Gets us in the SEC championship game with their first year in the conference. The optics of them getting in the SEC championship game after beating us in their first year in the conference also looks terrible for us. I really think beating Texas there is way more important than a top 3 recruiting class. But I think it's a good question.
And it's not necessarily just about Texas, right? Like, yeah, we want to beat them because that's the rival. They haven't played in 10 years. That's absolutely part of the conversation. But to me, it's what's the biggest thing at stake. Keeping your rival from potentially going and you platooning yourself into it.
Yeah, that's huge as well.
All right. What's the other thing you had for us?
Yeah. This is a question that we got. It's from a Houston number, no name. And it really got me thinking a lot. And I think it's a really good question. Thinking about like the potential future of the playoff selection. It says, so undoubtedly some SEC teams are going to be left out of the playoffs for teams like Indiana, SMU, BYU, etc. How will those teams' performance dictate the future of the selection process? Example, BYU or Indiana getting totally dominated in the first round.
I don't think it's mattered in the past. It's too new to know. But like, again, an 11-1 team in the Big Ten is going to be in the playoffs, right? If BYU wins the Big 12, there's nothing you can do about it. The conference champions under the current structure will be in the college football playoffs. I guess the question will be if BYU loses and 2 teams from the Big 12 make it, like that, I can see how that would have an effect. But it's not the 12 best teams in college football, because then it would be 7 or 8 teams from the SEC. It is the at-larges that make the most sense with your conference champions, right? And I think for the growth of the game of college football, not just for having a selfish eyes of SEC. You need to have some of these other schools. But I do think, does Notre Dame deserve to be there? Absolutely they do, right? Not only because they beat A&M, but that they have the resume. As for the BYU story, right now they're undefeated. Indiana's undefeated. And I think it's a 12-team playoff, not a 14 playoff, a 12-team playoff. You can't keep a team that's in a Big Four conference that has 1 loss or no loss out of the college football playoffs, in my opinion. So let's do this. Let's hit a break. When we come back, Ethan Jones will have some stats for us, and we'll break that down when we come back. Right now, the difference is real with Rollo Insurance. They're an independent insurance company built around educating you on exactly what you're paying for, doing the shopping for you so that you can accomplish your insurance goals. They can write any form of insurance, and their number's very easy, 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. So, when you go there, just know that they're going to be the ones that find you the right insurance for your situation. You own a family-owned business, brand new employees make mistakes, got your person seriously hurt. What's going to happen next? Don't gamble with your future or your state or your business. Details matter. Preparation matters, and consultation and education matters. Go to rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs and start a conversation with your own personal insurance agent today. If you got questions, they've got to answer. Again, the website is rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. You're going to love it. 888-44-ROLLO. We're back on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. I want to talk about some events going on at Milliken Reserve. Sunrise Coffee on the 14th, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Volunteer at the farm, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on the 15th. And you also have it on the 16th, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Farm stand on the 16th, 8 a.m. to noon. And, of course, the trail running with the Lone Star Trail Runners, November 16th, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Milliken Reserve is a farm-to-table community that has homes, they got trails, they got farms, they got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community. And if you're into nature, if you're into being outdoors, it's the place to go hang out. You can go biking there, you can go hiking, you can go canoeing, kayaking. They got great equestrian trails, evening yoga, summer camps, music festivals, farmer market tours, and farm tours. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. That website is millikenreserve.com. We've got some stats on the open week. Ethan Jones is with us. Ethan,
Yes,
how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to be here.
So you got some little breakdowns comparing year to year.
Yeah, we're comparing, since it's bye week, we don't really have new stats, comparing last year to this year in some key stat areas. And honestly, the results are not what I expected.
Okay.
So let's get into them. First,
what did you expect? How about that?
I'll get to it.
Okay.
I'll get to it. It's a surprise.
Surprise, okay.
So first, win-loss record against ranked opponents. This year, we're 2-1. Beat LSU, Missouri, lost to Notre Dame. Last year, we were 0-5 against ranked opponents.
That's not good.
That's not good at all.
That does not help your chances to get into the playoffs.
These next two don't either for last year. Win-loss in one-score fourth quarter game, so one score going into the fourth quarter.
Yep.
We've been 3-1 this year, which is really good. Last year, 0-4. We could not finish games.
Yeah, the difference is the two losses this year, they were a one-score game or could have been a one-score game in the fourth quarter, but then obviously some turnovers did not help.
Yeah. And then win-loss in away games, we know we were really bad at that in the Jimbo era. 0-4 last year. This year, 2-1. So much better. So in all like the big win-loss categories, we've been much, much better, which is key.
Yep.
And here's where it starts to be a little more unexpected. First, let's do some stats that we are better in. So rushing yards per game, we've been great in that. 212.9 per game, 14th in the nation. Last year, we were 90th in the nation in rushing yards per game. Yards per carry, 28th this year in the nation, 93rd last year. Sacks allowed per game, our offensive line is much better, only 1.5 allowed this year, 2.3 last year. And we've also had a +5 turnover margin, -2 last year. So we're better in all those areas, good areas.
I think those numbers are a little bit skewed over the last two games. Isn't it, Cooper, is it 8 sacks in the last two games?
Yes, I think it's like 8 sacks.
4 and 2, maybe it's 6 in the last two games because I think they got sacked twice against South Carolina and LSU 4 times. So 6 in the last. So that number's gone up a little bit more.
Yeah, before last two games, we were only allowing 1 sack per game.
Right. So it has gone up a little bit.
But here's where it's kind of unexpected. Is in a lot of stat categories, we were actually better last year. Yards per pass attempt, sacks per game, we were better last year. Yards per play differential, which is the difference between your yards per play on offense versus the other opponent's yards per play. Points per game were pretty similar. 20-plus yard pass plays were pretty similar. But honestly, besides the 4 I mentioned earlier, everything else last year's team did better statistically.
Well, let's talk about maybe part of the why. Even though you had multiple quarterbacks playing last year, most of the season or half the season, you've had Marcel Reed, who's more, he scares you more with his legs than his arm, although he has shown the ability to throw. I think Connor has struggled mightily this year outside of the Missouri game. He has not looked like the Connor we saw the first 4 games of the season last year. Jalen Henderson threw the ball, I think, pretty well. And Bobby Petrino, I mean, I love what Colin Klein is doing, but Bobby Petrino, with that team, threw it a little bit more than we're seeing.
Yeah, and there's 2 stats that actually show why as well. Win-loss in games, A&M lost the total yardage battle. We're 3-2 this year. We were 0-5 last year. So this team, those stats are not the same. We're just finding ways to win. Like the first 3 stats I mentioned, we just win games. Even though maybe the stats, last year's team was a little better, we just win games, which is kind of crazy.
Yep, and then here's the stat. Did you do this one? I don't think you did. A&M winning the turnover battle by 2+.
4 out of the 9 games we've done that, and then 1 out of 13 last year.
Huh.
Yeah. Turnovers help too, winning that turnover battle.
I think on the rewind, you're going to tell us a little bit about the New Mexico State game, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good stuff, Ethan. Appreciate your time. All right. That's going to do it for TexAgs Live on a Wednesday. My thanks to all of our great guests. Obviously, Ryan Brauninger reminded us today's baseball signing day. I had forgotten about that. We also had Max Wright on the program. We had John Harris on the program. We had Tom Schuberth on the show, Who else did we have? We had Olin Buchanan. He's really good at what he does sometimes, all the time. Anyway, my thanks to all of them and all of you for watching and listening. My thanks to Nick Savage and, of course, Cooper Patterson, all the folks in the back, Brian Broadcasting, Ethan Jones with some great stats that I hadn't thought about. That's going to do it. Thank you so much. We will see you all mañana.